And with that, we should be live, which hopefully means that we're actually here and people can hear and all that other fun stuff. That said, how are you guys doing today? It's Thursday. Normally we do Hammered Out today, but Ocean's busy, so instead we are going to be letting him take a break and do something I've been wanting to do for a little while, and that is set up something where I can chat with you guys. Also, I'm going to be having random teamfight tactics playing in the background, more than likely. That way there's something visual you guys can see whilst bickering is happening back and forth. And if you would like to join and play, you can. It's up to you. Is that a yes, you are joining, or is that a I acknowledge?
I understand, and I will message if I want.
Okay. Till then, I'm going to go ahead and hit confirm, and we will start the fun stuff, which is essentially just chatting with everybody. That said, how are you guys doing? I hope you all are having a wonderful time so far. If not, maybe we'll be able to fix that. So, we have good news and bad news before we start out. Good news is, if I haven't already said it, the tree that tried to kill us has actually been removed now. The bad news is that was $1,500 we didn't have. But it's gone. So, there's no more threat that Suris is going to randomly die on stream. So at least there is that for anybody that wanted to know. Also, this is a call-in stream. If you guys would like to come in and chat, then what you will need to do is go onto our Discord. And on the Discord, you will need to hop into the stream waiting room. And in the stream waiting room, I will pull you guys in one at a time so we can have a chat for 5 minutes. And we can agree, disagree, whatever you guys want to do. We will have that conversation. But yeah. So hopefully that'll be something that you guys want to do. We've already got 5 people in there waiting, so there's that. And if anybody wants to know what I think about any particular subject, this is quite literally that time where you get to hop into the stream waiting room and have that conversation. So if you're randomly asking me questions in the chat, normally I would answer very, very quickly, very easily, but this time you literally have a chance. Yay, hello. You literally have a chance to hop in and have that conversation. So, there's that. That said, go ahead and pull first person in who has come in. And you know what? Let's go ahead and start with fun. Hey, Mystic Mind, can you hear me?
Hello there. Surprised I did get chosen first after all.
Nah,
yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly fine. Me and you have had several chats before in comment sections and otherwise. So I figured...
1 second, please.
Sure.
I apologize. I was just getting a major echo in the stream and had to mute it there.
Fair. If you were having to hear me and the stream at the same time, that would be kind of a problem.
And myself in an infinite loop. That's all kinds of fun.
It depends on if you're a narcissist. Yourself on an infinite loop may actually be considered a good thing.
Thankfully, I'm not that into myself. And, okay, I probably should have watched the phrasing now.
Well, all I can say is thanks to that, we now know you have a very penetrating sense of humor.
Oh, I wish my partner could hear this. I'll probably link them after, because they are innuendo central. Anyway, moving on to the a slightly less adult topic. I just kind of, wanted to keep things a little light to start off with and get your general opinions on World of Warcraft, which I happen to be playing right now, because I've seen you mention it once or twice. I know your avatar is generally based off Thrall, aka Goel, which they really should be using that name now, but whatever.
They use Goel in the books pretty liberally, and then in the game they still call him Thrall.
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, in general, I just kind of wanted to know what your general thoughts about the game are right now, how you're feeling about Classic, and which, if any, you plan to be continuing to play.
So, here's my plan with Classic. When Classic releases, I'm going to be playing day 1. And not only am I going to be playing day 1, I'm going to be streaming it day 1. Because that's just how I feel about Classic WoW. On top of that, as far as World of Warcraft in general as an intellectual property, I kind of want to fire the entire staff and make them start over.
Yeah, well, those are strong words, to say the least.
I'm sorry, Chris Metzen should never get his hands on a character ever in the rest of his writing career. That's my personal opinion. Christy Golding has classically been very good at writing characters within Warcraft lore, and Chris Metzen has been very good at accidentally Mary suing Thrall over and over and over and over, and I'm kind of tired of it.
Yeah, they don't. Fandom doesn't call him Green Jesus for nothing, eh?
Yeah, basically, I can't stand what they've done with the character, and I can't stand how far he's fallen as far as like being a good and well written character. I do like what they're doing with him right now in Modern WoW, where they've had what's his I can't remember his name. Old soldier. For some reason it's escaping me.
Yeah, Saurfang.
Saurfang. Varrock Saurfang. I'm glad that they have Varrock Saurfang like kind of recruiting Thrall and saying, "Hey, I don't really want you to lead the Horde. I just want you to fight for the Horde right now," which is good because honestly, I really don't want Thrall leading the Horde again. I think that Thrall's had a very good time leading the Horde, but Thrall thought for some reason that freaking Hellscream was a good idea for leader, and I'm sorry, but all the signs were there that was not the case.
I seem to recall that in the prelude to the Cataclysm book, it's established that he was more or less just thinking, well, perhaps leadership will temper him a bit, make him mature, make him think that's, a good time to really start looking at the wider picture of the Horde. But unfortunately, he went in the completely opposite direction.
Yeah, it turns
and
out,
we all know how that turned out.
It turns out that leadership actually just made him bloodthirsty and more xenophobic. In fact, we could argue that Garrosh Hellscream, in becoming a leader, became the orcish version of Donald Trump, down to telling everybody who was not an orc to get out of his country.
Yeah, pretty much. Though I will say that I kind of liked how he was progressing in the Cataclysm expansion itself. From what I played of it, because I kind of stopped playing midway through for a while. Because there it showed how much the writers have the potential to make these characters in a more moral grey area. Because as you may recall, he physically reprimanded an orc from
physically reprimanded.
nuking.
Wait, hold on. Physically reprimanded. Is that the milquetoast way we're going to call throwing off of a cliff?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool. I'm glad to know that's just a physical reprimand. So here's the litmus test for physical reprimands. There's what your parents do to you when you're a kid, and then there's throwing you off of a cliff, and we can't really tell the difference between the two. So there's good old Thrall to let us know. Not Thrall, but Garrosh. I'm sorry, no, that was not a physical reprimand. That was an execution.
Yeah, well, semantics aside, it did show that he at least had some standards. There was a line that he wouldn't cross, and then that he went completely off the deep end in Pandaria. And the only thing that I really think was a good product of that was the War Crimes novel, which is my absolute favorite.
I actually have it sitting on the shelf right behind me right now.
Nice. Yeah, I just love how that kind of embodied what the Horde originally was for me when I started playing the game. Because I think in a lot of traditional RPGs, and especially fantasy in general, you'll see the orcs as the generic bad guys, the undead as the generic bad guys. They're just evil by default. And the Horde wasn't that. Thrall really showed that, with better writing and a more complex backstory, even if they were at one point close to being the generic bad guys, thanks to the whole Demon Blood and Manaroth thing, they still had a bit more complexity to it, and that they weren't completely just savage. They're basically not like the orcs in the Warhammer universe, which is kill everything in sight because it's there.
There's a little more to the orcs in the Warhammer universe, though, because remember, the orcs in the Warhammer universe have got to have the biggest sense of Peter Pan syndrome in the entire world, because the orcs in the Warhammer universe can be on a leaky boat that has no bottom, but if they believe it should float, it floats.
Exactly.
It floats.
Yeah,
The orcs in Warhammer are just, if they believed they weren't bloodthirsty animals, they actually wouldn't be bloodthirsty animals.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's what makes them so hilarious to read about, even in the more serious novels. But yeah, it stands to the point that I liked the overall, the depth and the complexity to these characters. And I will say that I do feel a bit underwhelmed by the current lore, because while I do think that it is not completely trash, it's not completely unsalvageable, it is very much, we were kind of teased with potential moral greyness, and it is largely Mr. Pandaria 2.0. Not entirely,
yes,
and I might be potentially biased there because I didn't really play through Mr. Pandaria when it was new, but it is going down through a lot of story beats, and I think it's just about stayed with the old gods, the potential manipulation, and also the whole, Naga stuff with Ishara. I think that's what's keeping it interesting for me, and also the Horde leaders who are one by one looking up to Sylvanas and going, oh no, not again.
I think we've learned something, is that there are certain people that should be given power, right? Vol'jin has been there from the beginning. Vol'jin was a good leader for the short time he got to do it. Thrall is a good leader for the times that he's been able to actually be a leader. But people like Garrosh and Sylvanas with a proven track record of betrayal, hot-headedness, holding a grudge for potentially far too long. These are people who should not be given power in the Warcraft universe for the same reason that I would never advocate for Jaina Proudmoore. As much as I love her character, I would never advocate for Jaina Proudmoore to be given a modicum of power again in the Warcraft universe outside of being like a liaison for Stormwind. Not after her like genocide that she tried to commit in Dalaran.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's what I liked about the Warcraft universe, and what really enticed me about the lore is that the morals aren't so clear cut like you'd see in a lot of fantasy fiction. And Jaina is somebody who has kind of tiptoed around that moral, boundary, that moral event horizon at the same time. And even in this expansion with a lot of the war campaign, she's had to really temper herself. She's really kind of matured, but even then, her, she's got a lot of trauma behind her, and there's still a lot of potential for her to go off the rails. And I don't know if you watch the YouTube channel Taliesin and Nevertell, but Taliesin suggested that maybe the next expansion we might have a division between the Alliance like we currently do with the Horde, and Tyrande might be the one who's, going slightly cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, if I may use the phrase.
I've seen ever since Malfurion got the axe, not like, we're still not completely sold on whether or not Malfurion's like fully out, but ever since that happened, Tyrande has been kind of eating the fruity pebbles, as it were.
Yeah, exactly.
She's starting to act a little crazy, a little Jaina, if you would. She's starting to act very pre-mop Jaina. But that said, we do only have about another 30 seconds, 45 seconds before I got to pull anybody else in here. So is there anything else you'd like to close with, Mystic Mind?
Well, I'd just like to close with that I'm probably one of the few people who doesn't have much interest in classic WoW, because that's what I was introduced in just before the Burning Crusade, and I do not want to sit down for hours spamming trade chat to try and get another tank for a dungeon.
Well, I'm going to be avoiding all of that because my first three characters in Classic WoW are going to be a Paladin, a Warrior, and a Warlock respectively, so I'll either be able to bargain with the Warrior and just yeet them into the dungeon with teleportation, or I will be able to just be the tank myself.
That's always useful. Glad you've at least got a plan. I just play whatever the hell I find amusing at the minute.
Dragnaut says that he's going to be on the Thalnos server. Drag, I'm sorry that we're going to be on different servers, but don't... Actually, Drag, are you playing... Sorry, I am responding to Drag real quick in there. I need to figure out if Drag is playing in Alliance or not. But that said, Mystic Mind, it has been a wonderful chat so far. I have enjoyed having you in here. Jordan also just donated 15 and said, all this WoW talk makes me very nostalgic. Classic might actually draw me back in. You know, I'm going to be doing a lot of live streaming of Classic once it releases. If people don't want to see that, that's fine. They just don't tune into my Twitch.
Fair enough. Well, I look forward to seeing it all the same. It's been nice talking to you.
You as well.
Bye now.
Alrighty, well that was fun. Alright, so who are we pulling in next? Drag is playing Horde. Okay, so it doesn't matter what server you were playing on anyway, Drag. We weren't going to be on the same server. Alright, let's grab somebody else who has been waiting and pull them in. Hack and Slash, how are you doing today? You'll have to unmute your microphone, by the way. I've already server unmuted you, so you're able to speak, but you have to unmute your own microphone from here. There you go. And they disappeared. Okay. Well, if they've disappeared, that's awkward. Let's, try someone else then. There we are. Let's see if we can't server unmute. There we are. Adam Anomaly! I've pulled you in. You'll have to unmute yourself, but other than that. Or they've just ran into the stream waiting room. Okay. Well, that's awkward. Everybody that I've tried to pull in so far has disappeared. Okay, well, we'll try that again. Oh, Adam Anomaly said they pressed the wrong button. There we go. Alright, try now. Unmuting yourself. Also need to figure out what I want in this. Take that. Adam Anomaly, you will have to unmute yourself. But once you unmute yourself, you'll be good. As we wait. That Nidalee just won't die. Adam Anomaly, you have about 30 seconds. If you can't unmute yourself in about 30 seconds, I am going to have to throw you back up in the waiting room. Use Suris error. What do I want from this? Do I just... I guess I'll get this. Alrighty. Well, then we're going to go ahead and throw Hack and Slash back in, see what we can do. There we go. Or it's going to... Everything is breaking. Everything is breaking. Every person I try to bring in, it just keeps on messing up for some reason.
Their heads will adorn my wall.
It's clear now that people don't want to talk to Suris from Robert X. Hey now. Hey, you're probably right. Let's be fair. Alright, well we will try one other person that has been in there. Godless Virus, how are you doing? You will have to unmute yourself. And then they... Okay, how is it that people in unmuting themselves keep throwing themselves into the stream waiting room? I'm so confused. Everything smashes when Suris is live. Thanks, Jack. Jacob Dunkel says, bad with Discord, how do I get into the waiting room? Okay, so once you get into our Discord, you have to read the rules. There's a password in the rules. Once you submit the password in the password channel... then you'll be able to use bot commands to get any of your rooms. All you have to do at that point is just click on stream waiting room. Alright, we're just gonna do something. Since everything keeps on breaking. We're gonna get that in Italy.
On the prowl.
Why not? You know what? I know Jack knows how to use Discord. Jack, how are you doing today? You'll have to unmute yourself. But I decided to pull you in because I know that you know how to use Discord. How is... Okay, so Jack pulled himself... It must be a thing that's happening with everybody. I'm confused. Hold on. Do. We try again. Yes, hack and slash, you can still speak. I just need to pull you in. There we go. We try it again. see if it breaks again. You'll have to unmute yourself, hack and slash, but past that you should be able to speak once you unmute yourself.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, it is working now. At least
Am I online?
You are online.
Okay, nice to meet you. I've actually I am very grateful to meet one of my personal favorite YouTubers. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you as well. The only problem we're running into right now is that your microphone seems to be lagging a lot. Are you on a hardwired connection, or are you using the phone?
Hey, bud. Hey, Suris.
Yes?
So the issue that everybody's
Pardon,
having
son,
is
with
that
my
people
dinner.
on mobile, because of the stream chat being hidden, are being forced to click and connect to stream waiting room, so it's popping them back out. So what we're probably gonna have to do is take it over to like Civilized or something. That way people can still connect to it, and then if you'd like, I can go sit at my PC and monitor and make sure that nobody gets in, or we can make it like a cap of 2.
Well, not a cap of 2. Or make it a cap of 2. That'll work.
Okay, give me just a second. Fix it. Edit channel. User limit. 2. Okay, so, Suris, the way that you're gonna do this, instead of people being just allowed to join randomly, what you're gonna do is, you're gonna pull someone in, so like, for instance, you'll pull, Hacks and Slash in, and then when you're ready for the next person, you can pull the next person in, server mute, say your goodbye to Hacks and Slash, and then push him out, and then unmute the other person.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead
Sound good?
and... Alright, so we move into...
Civilized.
Civilized? Okay, so we're gonna do... Boom. Boom. Alrighty, can you still hear me, hack and slash?
Yes, I can still hear you.
Okay. And...
Anyways,
it sounds like you're lagging it sounds like you're lagging a lot. What are you using to chat through?
however, my internet isn't the best. That's pro lag.
That's probably what it is. The internet's just terrible. Okay, if it's that the internet is terrible, then what we're going to have to do is I am going to have to say goodbye here in a second. Mainly because if we can't do the conversation thing because it's taking so long for the voices to actually, like, send back and forth, then that's how we're going to have to go about it, unfortunately. It seems like he's frozen. Alright, well, we're going to have to do this then. And then swap over. That was unfortunate. I actually wanted to speak to Hack and Slash, but if that's going to keep on messing up, I have to do this. There we
Hello
go.
there.
How's it going, Godless Virus?
Hello there.
Seems like it's working now on this end, at least.
Well, it's because I just transferred onto my PC.
Ah, so things are actually functioning now.
Yeah, it's like they mentioned. If you're on mobile, when you get moved, your phone still thinks you're in stream waiting room.
Yeah, Raz was letting me know that, so I've gone ahead and fixed
But
it.
yeah, I suppose what I'd like to talk about is I'm planning to start up a channel, sort of like everybody I've seen on YouTube, like you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking of advice that you could give to for starting up.
Sure, I can actually give a little bit. Well, the first thing I'd say is, do you know what programs you're going to be using to build your videos?
I mean, probably going to be using something like OBS for recording, Streamlabs for, of course, streaming. I don't know what I'd probably be using for editing, since I don't really know that much editing software other than Sony Vegas and a few others.
Do you have Sony Vegas already?
No, I don't.
Okay. My suggestion, and we're also getting super chats in from Gaelic Knox. I will respond to those in a second, damn it. I'm sorry. Okay, so my suggestion for a good editing software that's free is HitFilm Express. It's what I've been using for 2 years for my channel. All of my editing's been done on there, and it's a completely free software.
Sounds good.
The other thing that I would say is the best advice I was ever given, and I give this to everybody, so I'll give it to you as well. Best advice I was ever given when starting a channel is to just make your first video, knowing full well, no holds barred, that your first video is going to suck, and there's absolutely no way around that.
Yeah, I already know that, because at the moment I don't really have a decent PC, which I'm working towards getting at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So my first video is literally going to be a video edited on my phone using a software on my phone, just to introduce myself to people.
Yeah, my friend, Frustrated Atheist, Russ, actually did that for a while. I think he still does that. He edits on his phone exclusively.
Yeah, because at the moment I can't really do much other than that until I get the money for that PC, which won't take that long, hopefully. As long as I don't keep spending my money too quickly.
Fair enough. Definitely
So,
once you've got your equipment settled out, the biggest thing is making sure that you also know just to put your nose to the grindstone and do it. Because your first episode, it's not going to be very well researched. It's not going to be very well edited. It's not going to look very flashy. But by doing your first episode, you'll know how to do your next one, and you'll be able to build off of that.
yeah. And another thing I'd like to talk about is what kind of way were you raised in? Because I'm sort of, from most of the YouTubers I've watched around sort of religion and atheism, most of them were ex-Christian or ex-Muslim or ex-Mormon, something other than that. Whereas I have a different perspective. I've grown up as an atheist.
Oh, so you're going to be from the perspective a lot like how Bionic Dance is. Because,
sort of, yeah.
Because Bionic Dance, Kate, never was raised religious, so a lot of those ideas were really alien to her.
See, for me, right, I actually have a Bible upstairs that I've been looking in to try and, research certain passages to maybe talk about. But for me, whenever I pick it up, I literally don't want to read it. I don't even want to turn to the first page.
Is it just...
Because
is there a reason for that?
I don't fully understand it. I think it's because some people would probably, religious people would probably say it's me, being indoctrinated as an atheist. I'm just saying that it's because my dad's read it all the way, and he's read some of the atrocities that were in it. So, I don't see much point in reading it myself. However, I'm probably going to have to at some point for research purposes.
Yeah, if you're going to be tackling ideas,
Yeah.
you're going to have to know where the ideas stem from. For instance,
mean-
I've got a Book of Mormon and a Bible next to me at all times whenever I need them as reference points. Even though I don't like reading either of them, I think they're boring as heck.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing for me. I think that's what it is. It's because I think of it as just a storybook. I think of it as just a human storybook, just like any other book I've read, except it's not interesting to me.
No, and that's fair. Again, my suggestion would be to go through and read it. Actually, you know what? An easy way to do it would be to get an audiobook version of the Bible, preferably one that's in like American Standard. That way, it doesn't sound like a brick wall when you're listening to it. But doing it via that's how I had to read the Quran, because I didn't want to sit down and read the Quran. But what I did is I listened to it in audiobook form, and that gave me a couple of opportunities. One, I got to listen to it in Arabic as well as in English. So the common claim for Muslims is that the Quran sounds like music when read in the original Arabic, and they're actually not wrong. When it's read in its original Arabic, it does sound very musical. It does sound very beautiful. So, but had I not listened to it in audiobook form, I wouldn't have been able to get that particular perspective.
See, you were mentioning Bionic Dance earlier, and how I actually didn't know about that until now. I just thought she was like the rest of you.
No.
Raised
Bionic Dance and Logic both weren't raised as Christians.
I didn't know that because I've only just known them for not long enough to see that within their channel. I've just assumed, that's my own reasoning from every other channel that I've seen having it like that. I just assumed that they were, but guess I was wrong. At least I admit that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, a lot of them do, in fact, come from non-religious backgrounds, and so you get a perspective from them that is a little different, because when you are coming from a religious background, your perspective is largely religious.
Another thing that happened when I was younger is because I'm British, of course, our school system is sort of different to where you are, but when I was in primary school, we used to have religious assemblies or whatever where people would, just bow their heads down and have a short prayer. I honestly, of course, because I was raised without religion, I didn't understand that. And another thing that happened was we used to get visits by the Gideons when I was in middle school.
Hey, that's actually the what Bible I have is a Gideon Bible.
I think it was the Gideons? Yeah, the Gideon Bible. We used to get visits from them and assemblies from them, and they gave everyone a small version of it.
Yeah, they'd give you the little New Testament Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the practice. I've got like I said, I have a Gideon Bible, and the Young Earth Creationist private school that I went to had a lot of little green New Testaments.
Yeah, you see, because this is the way that I've seen it. My dad was like, "What? Why don't you read it? To read some of the stuff in it." And I'm like, "Because I'm not interested in reading it." And he was like, "Fair enough," because the way it's a combination of the way I've been raised and thinking of it as just a storybook.
Well, you definitely can't get invested in a book that you aren't interested in the first place. If I were to hand you, The Great Gatsby,
an action book.
Well, I mean, if I were to hand you The Great Gatsby, but you weren't interested in reading The Great Gatsby, even though it has one of the best openings in literary history, it doesn't matter. It still wouldn't rope you in because you just didn't want to read it.
See, for me, my opinion on religion is people can believe what they want to believe, as long as they don't try to push it upon others, and as long as they don't harm people with it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hear about people I really don't want to have to say it, but the NFIB and people like that, when I hear about things like that where they're advocating for killing people that they disagree with, and that they feel is immoral. When I hear about that, I'm like, that's not respectable. If I could, I would have gone to the peaceful protests that they had.
I know what lurks in the shadows.
Because, nobody wants, nobody like us would want something like that. It's completely immoral.
No, I agree. Actually,
I've watched several of your videos on the NFIB, and literally within a few minutes of listening to their preaching, I just don't want to listen anymore. They're those kinds of people where if you listen to them for too long, it feels like you're losing brain cells.
No, I understand. I actually, one of the people who lives with me, their mother listened to the NIFB over the internet for like so long that they eventually just joined the cult. So there's also that issue that happens as well.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but there's really not much you can do about it. Except for try to fight that type of madness, and I am going to call it madness when it comes to the NIFB.
Yeah,
I have no.
They
problem,
are a cult.
Yeah, I have no problem calling what they do madness.
I mean, I would call it madness too.
Yeah.
Because it's like, treat others how you'd like to be treated. Would they like to be treated like that?
Well, I still don't. Well, so the reason I don't like the golden rule, which is what that basically is, when we're dealing with the golden rule, they would say no, they wouldn't want to be treated that way. The difference, though, is that the other people deserve it. So the whole treat others how they want to be treated thing, it only works up until the point where you're not dealing with a hypocrite. It's one of the same problems you have, even though I'm a huge fan of using the veil of ignorance when it comes to doling out what I think is moral and immoral. You still run into the same problem with the veil, that the veil and the golden rule and everything, it assumes that you would not think that being on the receiving end makes you deserve that punishment by default. And it sucks, but that is a flaw of it.
Yeah. No, I fully agree.
But with that said, we do have only another 35 seconds or so before I do have to try again, and hopefully Discord doesn't break itself.
Yeah, it's weird. I was on my phone earlier, so when you pulled me in, I had the exact same issue that other people on their phone were having, where it thinks that I'm still in that VC, and when I hit go, and because at the moment my phone screen's cracked at the bottom, I can't see what the bottom of my screen said. So I went to tap the unmute button, and it joined me back into the waiting room. So you can see what happened there.
Yeah, Discord has its it's a wonderful program in its ubiquity, but it's also a horrible program.
It's perfect
in its
on PC. It's perfect on PC. It works fine on PC. If someone moves you into a voice chat on PC, it's fine. But if someone moves you on mobile, the phone gets confused. The app gets confused. I do actually need to see if I can talk to the devs about that, because I'm in the dev server.
Fair enough. Well, if there is
So
some...
I'll see if they can get that fixed at some point.
If there are some things that they could improve, that would be wonderful, considering Discord is fairly important to me as a program. I would like to see it improve.
Same here. Like, seriously, I actually do rely on Discord a lot. I've got a lot of friends on Discord. And it's also how I, interact with people like you, Notja, other people like that.
Fair enough. With that said, I've enjoyed this conversation.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and
So
read
have
super
I.
chats and then move on to the next person. So thank you for coming in. Godless
No
Fires.
problem. No problem. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty. Alright, with that said, let's go ahead and look at super chats real quick. We do have one from Gaelic Nox, who's "You're cute and I love you." Love you as well, Emmett. And then another one that says, "My chaos goddess fixed the issue. Love you, Raz." Well, yeah, that is what they do. Alrighty. That said, let us move on to the next person here. Also, I see that we have a troll in the chat. A troll who I've done a video response on before, so that's fun. Anywho, Jack, how are you doing today? Hopefully this works this time.
Yeah, that's give me a second, because I heard you on both, so I'm turning the TV down.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so if anybody that's on the mobile version of Discord, once they're in the waiting room, if they click on the X in the top left of the screen, then when you pull them in, your screen will just pop up, and then they can hit unmute.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully, by switching over the way that we have, it shouldn't be much of an issue anymore. Hopefully.
I think it'll do exactly the same thing if they're on the mobile. So if they're on mobile, then yeah, just as long as once they join the waiting room, if they just click on the X in the top left, they'll be fine.
Gotcha.
Right. So yeah, that's just basically a shout out for anybody that's on the mobile, so that they know how to actually join your chat.
Gotcha. And Discord is not as perfect as we would wish it was.
Well, at least it's a simple workaround.
Fair. If a workaround is functional, there's at least that.
Yeah. Well, it shows I work in IT support, doesn't it?
Oh no, it definitely does. Knowing how to troubleshoot definitely tells you where you've been earning your money. With that said, how's your day been, Jack?
Not bad, not bad. It's to be fair, I'm not going to be on the stream for very long because it's I'm working the earlies tomorrow, and as the last person was, I'm in the UK. It was absolutely killing me when they were talking about singing in assembly, because I was just like, oh my god. Although Come and Praise is the best songbook that I've ever had in a school, ever. I mean, I was a religious child, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I still remember the songs today. And you know, when some people say, oh, there's no benefit to religion at all, and things like that, and it's like, well, you know what, to be fair, I remember a lot of it fondly. I'd rather be right than wrong, don't get me wrong, but...
Don't get you wrong, you'd rather be right than wrong. Isn't that like a type of tautology?
But, you know, if I had to choose, if the scientific aspects of my life or the religious ones, I'm always going to pick the scientific. Mm-hmm. But there was definitely something. I mean, there's a reason so many people are religious. It's very appealing.
No, you're definitely not wrong there.
It's that unfortunately they can't all be right, and I suppose Bionic Dance is very fond of saying it. I just believe in one less god than you do. Yeah.
I know. See, the I just believe in one less god than you do. I used to really like that one, and then I started to not like it as much when I realized that the issues weren't necessarily God belief on its own. The issue was what flavor that God belief ends up being presented in. So, for instance, if somebody just believes that, oh, a deity might exist, and they believe that there could be any number of them at that point, that doesn't really affect me terribly much. That doesn't do a whole lot against me, for me, etc. But if somebody believes in a god where the belief by itself shapes into saying that other people must believe or they burn for eternity, now we're dealing with a flavor of God that I have to hold issue with by merit of its proposition.
And I know they weren't always this good, but they're a much more relaxed version of Christians.
Just wanted to pop in and say hi, Jack.
Oh, hiya.
Raz is popping in to thank you for pizzas.
Well, you know, I've got one job on this server. But, you know, the Quakers, for instance, I mean, they've not always had a good past, don't get me wrong, but where they are now, if every Christian denomination was like the Quakers, were like the Church of England, and did more or less just go and leave everybody else alone, then I'd be fine with that. It
wouldn't be anywhere near as much of a problem at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, all right, okay, well, I totally appreciate that, because I know some people get on the high horse about them. For instance, the threat of hell. And I know you've made videos about it yourself in the past, and I think it does depend on the religion that it's coming from. Mm-hmm. But
my stance is hell propositionally can never be viewed as not a threat, because by invoking hell in any way, shape, or form, there is an underlying threat in the message. And that is that hell exists, and there is something you can do to earn going to hell. And if that's the case, there's no point in time where you can have hell where it's not a threat.
And I do get that, but at the same time, there's a very much a difference between, say, for instance, my old vicar at the Church of England. What their attitude would have been, well, I believe in hell, and I believe hell is real, so obviously I should tell people what to do to avoid that. But if you refuse to accept that message, then that would be like, okay, well, I've done my duty. You know, as a responsible human who believes in this, to them, actual threat, I've made you aware of the threat. I've made you aware of the danger. If you choose to now do nothing about that, well, fine. You know, that's where my responsibility ends, because they did believe that whole thing about, well, God is the person that's supposed to judge you, not me. So it's just my job to make you aware. And, well, if you do nothing about that, well, that's unfortunate.
The question then becomes, though, when we're dealing with that type of conversation, where do we draw the line between it's up to God to judge you and I'm judging you through God as a proxy?
And I think that's where a lot of the stuff, like I say, because, I mean, the UK, yes, we do have some Christian cults, but compared with what you guys have over the water, I mean, the first time I found out about the NFIB, I was just like, so somebody's having me on here. This can't be real. So, I mean, I think Eddie Izzard was the one that said it. The Church of England's very cake or death. It's like, would you like cake or would you like death?
I think I'll have the spring chicken, actually. There's where you learned that I actually am also an Eddie Izzard fan.
Well, as long as you're not covered in bees.
Now, Eddie Izzard, I enjoyed Eddie Izzard. I was also introduced to Eddie Izzard when I was a conservative Christian, so like, just his presentation immediately made me go, something's not right with this individual. And then over time, I was like, no, they're fine. It's me. I'm the problem.
Whereas, because Eddie Izzard is in so many ways so quintessentially British, even when I was a Christian, it was just like, oh, that's fine.
Well, because at that point, he's got a very reserved crassness about him. And I think that's one of the things that is really appealing about Eddie Izzard, is that he's able to be incredibly crass in a conversation without necessarily coming off as impolite. Which is not an easy thing to do.
But, I mean, as I say, for me, for coming onto the chat, the reason I was in on YouTube going, pick me, sort of thing, was mostly so that you're very devoted people who are all patiently sitting in that waiting room, waiting to speak to you. If they're on mobiles, they will now hopefully know how to actually speak to you, rather than getting returned. You added me so quickly, I hadn't had a chance to close it. I went to click on mute, and I moved straight back to the other room.
Fair. No, it basically came down to a whole, like, let me grab somebody who I know knows how to work this so I could keep the show going for a little bit.
Well, you grabbed too fast.
Well, apologies for that. Also, I'm performing very badly in Teamfight Tactics today. I am showing a horrible example of how to play this. Anywho,
I have to admit, I didn't know the game, so I didn't know how hard it was. Up until that point, you could have got away with that.
Yeah, no, I am not the best at it. I was okay at it when it first came out, but the meta shifted, and then I just randomly stopped paying attention to what I was supposed to do. So I'm officially not that great. That said, do have only about 30 more seconds, then I'm going to grab the next person. Is there anything else you would like to say, Jack?
No, just to really recap for anybody that's on the mobile, just to remind them. So once you join the waiting room, click on the X in the top left. Then when Suris pulls you in, the unmute button will be at the bottom of your screen. Okay? Right. I'll catch
Alrighty.
you later, Cyrus.
See ya.
Right. Bye.
That was fun. I enjoyed that. Also, now that I'm not eating into Jack's time, I would like to point out that I find it funny how we had a troll in the chat. I'm saying troll as in they were trolling the chat, not that they weren't sincere. I truly believe that they were very sincere in the things they were saying. But I do find it funny how instead of just following the instructions in the description to go into the Discord chat and then have this conversation, they would rather just yell and scream and then get timed out. But, yeah, it's just me. I found that kind of funny. I don't know if anybody else was as entertained by that as I was. But I was thoroughly entertained. Anywho, let's see if I can't... Nope, I missed it. I wasn't able to grab what I wanted. There we go. Anywho, let's move on to the next person here. You know what? Adam Anomaly was trying to get in earlier. Let's see if we can't make that work this time. I say that, but I'm having trouble being able to pull them. There we go. Or I just can't drag them in Discord for some reason. Discord, why are you such a fundamentally broken program sometimes? There we go.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm not sure 100% what I wanted to ask. Other than I was really appreciative of Godless Virus's questions earlier. Because I'm trying to start a channel too, so that was really helpful that he had those. Someone else recommended a program that they use, but I was wondering how you get videos for your responses and things, as well as if you have any advice for practicing street epistemology.
So I'm gonna go ahead and let you know right now. I hate street epistemology with a bloody passion.
Okay.
My problem with straight epistemology is how it's done. So, for instance, if we look at how Dan from Truth Wanted does straight epistemology, I'm okay with that because he has a call-in show where somebody calls in and then he gets to use it on them there where they consent to it. My problem with how straight epistemology is classically used, not classically as in from the old book How to Create Atheists, but the current version of straight epistemology that's utilized. The problem I have with it is that it feels a lot like accostation, almost like sales.
Okay.
Like, you go up to a person, ask them, hey, can I chat with you? They don't know what conversation you're going to have. They don't know what you're walking in there to do. While they might actually consent to the conversation itself, that doesn't mean that they've really consented to the style of conversation they're about to have. So when we're looking at that, and you're in, this is the reason that I view it also like sales. Not only is it a style of conversation that this person truly hasn't consented to yet, but this is also a type of conversation where once you've asked that person to have that conversation, you have a goal, and your goal, as opposed to find some type of truth, your goal is now for some reason to try to get them to stop thinking the way that they're thinking. And again, that's fine with me if we're doing like a call-in show and they're coming into you and they're trying to challenge their ideas against yours, and that's fine. But when it's random accostation where you're basically going in and doing that, a lot of people aren't really prepared for that. And if they had very bad reasons for believing the things that they did, the straight epistemology making them question them might make them change their mind, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be changing their mind for good reasons. Because I've seen people that have just as many bad reasons to be theists as there have been people who have bad reasons to be atheists.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, my suggestion for street epistemology is, unless you plan on having the people come to you, just don't do it. I just don't find it to be a very ethical way of approaching that conversation. This is just me personally.
Okay. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, so I actually really appreciate that. Yeah.
Past that, the other issue that I have with straight epistemology just comes into how it's structured. So epistemology, by its nature, is your personal theory of truth, but straight epistemology, by its nature, involves questioning the other person, not yourself.
Yeah.
So your personal theory of truth is now not contingent on you when you're exercising it. That also causes me some problems, because at that point, it's kind of like an awkward manhandling of what epistemology is. But that's just me. I know that there are people who don't feel that way. That's just my personal thoughts on it.
I see. I can see where you're coming from with that. I definitely understand that. It definitely gives me a new outlook on it. It's similar to how I hadn't thought when I was watching shoot. I'm having a mind blank.
I'm used to having those. I get those when recording all the time.
I get them all the time at the worst moments. It's brilliant. So, but thank you for letting me come on and talk to you and ask you these questions. The only other question I had was what do you use to get the videos you use for your responses? Like, so how do you get those? Do you use a website or program?
Primarily, I use Y2Mate. Y2Mate lets you grab a video in 240p, 360p, 720, or in HD if you need to. You can also grab just audio only if that's what you're going for. So I find it to be really useful for that. But yeah, no, it's Y2Mate.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Alternatively, if you really wanted to go the awkward route, you could use OBS and screen cap the footage, but I've done that for a few videos where I couldn't grab the video elsewise, and it's a pain and not something I would recommend doing.
Yeah, I was hoping to find something other than that to do that. That was going to be my last resort.
It definitely should function as the last resort. It sucks to try to do it that way. But it's not impossible.
Well, thank you for letting me come on and talk to you today.
Alrighty. Well, I hope you've enjoyed, and if you have, then awesome. If not, then that kind of sucks.
I have, thank you.
Alrighty. Well, I'm going to go ahead and grab the next person in. Thank you for hopping in.
Good.
Alrighty. Let's see here. Who are we grabbing in now? You know what? This'll work.
Welcome back, Adam. Oh my goodness.
Nope. Not welcome back, Adam. I grabbed you in.
Hi.
How's it going, Cairo?
I'm doing okay. I'm okay. I'm a little nervous.
Well, I can understand being nervous, but there's really no reason to be, aside from the fact that you're being viewed by people. But aside from that...
well, don't remind me.
There's no reason to be nervous, except for all the reasons you could potentially be nervous.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, I wanted to first... One of the first things that I noticed on your channel that I was really excited to see is actually like the Yu-Gi-Oh blanket that you have hanging behind you, because when I was a kid, that was my shit. So I wanted to compliment you on your interests because they match mine, and that's
an awkward reason to compliment somebody, but,
yeah.
But I'll take it.
I mean, it was one of the first things that drew me. Like, my name actually kind of is derived partially from Yu-Gi-Oh, so it's something that I felt an immediate connection to you through. But anyway, the main thing I actually wanted to talk about was something that I find not very many YouTubers talk about, and I kind of wanted to ask you your opinion on it, and that's like the whole age of accountability thing.
Oh, at what point can a person die and still go to heaven even though they haven't been saved?
That, and like how a lot of churches like kind of that links with baptism in a lot of churches.
So I have my thing with age of accountability. I use it as a conversation tool.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of conservative Christians end up being very anti-abortion as like one of the things that you typically see.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things that I'd like to do with age of accountability is I'll ask what is the prime directive of being a Christian, and it's to lead souls to Christ. The more souls you can lead to Christ, the better. So then the conversation becomes, did I really just lose to NPCs? I did. Neat. So then the question becomes, well, if there's an age of accountability and the prime directive is to lead souls to Christ, then doesn't that awkwardly lead you down a path where the most moral thing to do is to abort every child ever as a matter of praxis?
Right.
Like every child, it becomes immoral to not abort at that point, because then you're going against prime directive, and that's just one of those things that like it doesn't. Aside from that, I don't care terribly much about the age of accountability insofar as it's a useful conversation piece.
Right. Well, I guess kind of to qualify the question a bit more, like I was raised Mormon, so I was brought up from the ages of born to 8 years old to kind of like idolize my baptism and like to live my life for that milestone. And for Mormons, like 8 years old is kind of like the age of accountability type thing, where like you make this decision to basically spend the rest of your life devoting yourself to a church when they spend 90% of your young life lying to you about what the church believes. So then something that I had to tackle, and something that I still kind of struggle with even now, and it's been probably like 10 years since I've left the church, is the fact that at 8 years old, I was forced to make this decision to like basically devote my life to something that I didn't even know really what was.
And now you're
and I was too young to really know that.
And then you're stuck in that situation where you've made the promise to dedicate your life to that, but then later on you go, well, hold on, wait, did I really want to do that? It's a lot like if I could compare that to something, it's a lot like when you have teenagers who are dating for the first time and they make a promise to each other never to break up, but then like 4 months later they realize that they're horribly incompatible, or at least one of them realizes they're horribly incompatible, but there's that promise there, so they end up staying with each other for a particular amount of time, even if it ends up being somewhat damaging. I've seen that happen before, and it's kind of the same deal, where you're dealing with all the same things there, where there's no reason that X people should be stuck together for this amount of time, yet awkwardly they find themselves stuck together for that amount of time because they've made a promise, not even understanding that promise might come with a certain gravity.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, like I said, it's something that I struggle with a lot, like, as I was kind of making my journey out of the church. Like, I kept going to church even after I stopped believing in it for years, because I felt like I had to. Like, I made this covenant, because that's what they call it, because they can't just call it a promise, right?
It has to be something a little greater at that point.
Yeah, like, I made this, I basically signed my life away to this thing, and it took a long time to get over that. So I guess to me, it's one of the most terrible things that you could do to a kid, is like put them in this position where they don't really have a choice, but they think they're making that choice.
It's like it's like the conversation on can a child consent, and we know what we're talking about when we have that conversation. And the answer is almost always no, because consent involves being able to be informed on the situation, and there's no way that somebody at, say, 8 years old or 9 years old or 10 years old, when they're trying to dedicate themselves to a church, there's no way that somebody like that is informed enough to determine whether or not they actually consent to signing their life away in that way.
Yeah.
So if there's no ability to determine informed consent, how can we determine that any particular action down that line is ethical? And my argument is that, well, it's not. I don't fully subscribe to the whole all religion is child abuse notion, though I've heard it before from Hitchens and others.
I mean, I don't either. I think that in particular is something that some churches do that is just kind of abhorrent. And I mean, it could just be because I myself have had to deal with it, and I've kind of had to deal with the backlash that caused me. And, obviously when you've gone through it yourself, you're going to have more of a, opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just,
They joined the wrong army.
I don't know. I guess I just find that is something that I don't really hear talked about much. And maybe it's just because a lot of people, haven't really, I don't know, they didn't experience it the same way that I do, or did. Because I know a lot of people I've talked to that are also ex-Mormons didn't necessarily have that problem. They didn't really consider the whole baptism thing to be that important to them.
They didn't feel like they were being roped into something for the rest of their lives, and now they regret it.
Yeah. But that was something, it's something I still tackle with now. I have these moments where I think about it and I'm like, I really regret that. How could I have made that decision? And then I get pissed off at myself for thinking that I could do that at 8 years old, and then I have to convince myself out of this weird thing that happened, So it's
the thing that you really had no business agreeing to in the first place, given the age that you were at when you did that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, maybe not everyone has to deal with that, but it's definitely something that I've had to deal with. And I guess it was just something that I kind of wanted to put out there and be like, maybe other people have had this experience too. And
I think that if at least a few people have probably had the experience of being far too young to understand what they were doing in one of those situations, but also, for instance, not wanting to displease their parents is one of the reasons that we get that a lot, where they don't want to say, oh, well, if I do this, or they say, well, if I don't do this, I'll displease my parents, but if I do this, then there's another awkward thing that comes from it. So I definitely see an issue where there are people who they don't want to upset their parents, they don't want to upset their peers, so they end up doing something like dedicating their life to the church really early, far earlier than they have any reason to. So I can definitely see issues that stem from that.
Yeah.
But with that said, about another 30 seconds or so before we move on to the next person, was there anything else you wanted to say, Caro?
Just thank you for talking to me and existing, I guess.
Well, I don't plan on making myself not exist for a while. That would involve. Man, this joke's gonna get really dark if I continue it. It's not.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Will do. See ya.
Bye.
Alrighty. Let's see. Who do we have after that? You know what? That. Actually, no. Duck is I have grabbed Duck, but Duck cannot hear me because they are deafened. So that leads into some problems. So never mind. Not Duck. We'll grab someone else instead. Who's... aha! There we are.
Whoopsie doodle. Hello.
How's it going, Duck?
It's going A-okay, partner. I didn't notice I was doing a bot game while waiting.
Fair enough.
I just wanted to say one thing and then hop right out so that the next person could go in.
Sure.
I've said this many times before, but I wanted to reaffirm to you, your opinions are shit. They are fucking shit, Suris. Goodbye.
Okay. That's fine. For those who don't know the context behind that, me and Duck have a long-running disagreement on whether or not Majora's Mask is better than Ocarina of Time. My opinion is that Majora's Mask is not better than Ocarina of Time, but Duck seems to have a different opinion than I do. That's fine, though, because he's wrong. Also, hi, Ocean. I can't hear you at all. You should try plugging your microphone in. No, trust me, the mic works much better if you plug it in, my dude. Can you try the speaking thing? Ah, wait, hold on.
Yeah,
There we
should
go.
turn me up. Yeah, that's right.
I had you turned to 0.
I had you turned to 0 too. I had to figure that out because it's like, why can't I fucking hear him in Discord?
I know why. This is because we had that
we did the thing.
conversation
Exactly.
hammered out.
Right.
So what are you doing here?
We
You're
were
not supposed
trying
to
not
be
to.
here. You're supposed to be taking the day off.
I was told not to show up, but I did anyway. I decided to come in and crash things. Everybody, I'm being held prisoner in Suris's tower behind his house. Send help.
I have a tower behind my house?
Send help.
This is news to me.
No, you do have a tower because I'm chained up in it currently. I've just managed to figure out how to finagle a way to get a cell phone, and you're acting all fucking cheeky about it, but I know you.
You realize that by mentioning to everybody that you're chained up in a tower at my behest, all you've done is enable a lot of weird fan art.
Oh no! Why did I do that?
You did.
Why
it.
did I did
not,
that?
Not only
that
did you do it, you did it to yourself of your own volition.
Fuck. That was really stupid of me.
Yeah. Now there's going to be a lot of artwork of Ocean being chained up in a tower, somehow not able to get through the bars, even though he is made of liquid.
Why the fuck did I do this?
You did it
to myself. I just did that. But yeah, we decided to take a break day from Hammered Out. Because I am going all over the place lately. I'm home one day this week. Words and stuff. But I decided to come on because it was so easily accessible. I decided to come in and
wait, it was easily accessible?
Said,
I thought you were stuck in a tower.
Words. So
also Jack in the chat
super
says
chat for $2
gets me wet.
Big puddle gets me wet. For those of you that don't know, there is a running meme that my name is actually Big Puddle. So
here we are.
And I'm not gonna deny it.
You're not gonna deny the meme or deny that you're Big Puddle?
I like it when they call me Big Puddle.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad to know. I'm glad to know that the chat gets you as wet as you get the chat.
Oh, this is bad.
This is very bad. It's not a good look for you.
Are we inviting people in, or did I just put a showstopper to that? Because I can hang.
So I invite people in. You are just currently taking up the spot of the next person who would have been invited because you stepped in.
You can drag them in.
Yes,
still.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to leave?
I'm going to put you into the stream waiting room now, Ocean.
No!
I'm throwing you back into the tower, Ocean.
No! I wanted to raid.
We have taken Ocean, and we have moved him around. Okay, grabbing the next person. How's it going, Uzu?
Oh, hey, how are you?
I can't complain. It's been largely uneventful, but it's also been fun.
Oh my goodness. I didn't expect you to pull me so soon. Oh goodness.
Nope, that's too bad.
It might be too bad for you, but to each their own.
Fair enough.
But I don't know if you remember me, but I'm just the guy that emailed you like almost a week ago saying like, hey, you're one of the new people that I'm going to be looking at almost every day now. And I talked about some of the people I like, but I hadn't really decided on what I wanted to talk about. I mean, it'd just be some general stuff, but well, I guess I could ask you one thing since I heard about this last night.
Sure.
How do you feel about Donald Trump considering musing the idea of purchasing Greenland?
I think that having an egomaniac in there doing his shit I think that's if he's trying to purchase it as like a territory for the United States, that's one thing. But if he's trying to purchase it because he's very desperate to have more land that he can then fail, which is what he's been very good at doing.
A part of me is wondering if it's all because his term is coming to a close, hopefully, just with this cycle. And I don't know, I feel like it might be a publicity stunt, but even then he was like, oh yes, it'll be good for real estate and other things like that. His advisors confirmed he talked about it. And then the Prime Minister of Denmark just came out and said, in short, no, it's not for sale. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, again, this comes down to him being the egomaniac there. But
and it just drives me crazy because I think it's like, okay, for all the people that are just go crazy along with him, they're actually on board with this idea, the art of the deal, negotiations. I'm like, y'all are considering this, but we haven't granted statehood to Puerto Rico yet. Okay. Yep. Oh man. Whew. Oh man. I apologize. I'm just a little nervous, and I didn't realize I'd just get swooped right in at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's basically random. Basically
yeah,
random.
I understand. But I mean, I guess background on me, I guess. Well, no. Jesus Christ, I cannot talk today. I woke up early and I had a problem with identity theft that I had to handle.
Yeah, I've been there, and not full identity theft, but having accounts broken into. It's not fun.
Oh, it's not. And now I had to get two-step authenticator on literally everything, so that was fun. But have you ever looked into Kent Hovind? That's a good question.
I have looked into Kent Hovind. The only reason I haven't gone into him much outside of the Discount Hovind series is that he's been covered so thoroughly by so many people. That I've just
like Aaron Ra.
Aaron definitely did a number on him. He's one of the ones. It also comes down to the fact that just he's not doing a whole lot now. Like most of what can be done with Kent Hovind now is just people challenging him to debates and it's slamming him.
Vegetative garbage.
Yeah, no, he's when my friend Nick Suter went into the debate with him, his conversation largely came down to would we ask a random person in the audience at any point to tell us why what was the way he worded it? Would we ask a random person on the street to tell us about why certain things in the Bible are the way they are, or would we ask somebody who's an expert in the Bible? And when Kent agreed that we would ask an expert in the Bible, he goes, okay, cool. So why do you think that we should be asking a pastor something about something that's in the field of science? And that's where their conversation basically ended up just being that in circles, because Kent would deny whatever he said and then move into just being an ass for the entirety of the conversation after that point. And it was really agitating because, like, that conversation could have been good, but Kent was Kent Hovind as he does.
Yeah. Well, you think we came from pine trees, or pine trees and elephants are related. Yes,
and it's like, yes,
over.
Are pine trees and elephants both eukaryotes? Are they? Okay, yes, we agree that they are. Then, yeah, they are related in that way, in the same way that I am related to my PC, because we are both based in carbon.
We have not seen a mosquito come from a whale. He's actually said that with the Hugo and Jake debate.
It's a good thing that we've never expected to.
Yeah, I would be kind of afraid, but I mean, I guess something I could mention since we're on the religion science topic. I mean, in my background, I was a Christian fundamentalist who was non-denominational. I was,
so Baptist
to put it
light.
simply, I guess so, but I was basically Satan put the dinosaur bones in the earth to trick us, homophobic, transphobic, just the bigoted as you can be. I was a literalist as well. Aaron Ra is the guy that broke me, so I'm like, I was telling my fiance the other day, I'm so glad that I looked into him, because if I hadn't opened my mind for that one short period of time, I would never have accepted the fact that, or probably never accepted the fact that I am bi, and wouldn't have been with my fiance who is a transgender woman. So
Because you would have been horribly bigoted against them at that point.
exactly, and even one of my gay friends, he's like one of my best friends in the world. I wouldn't have cared about him either. Yeah, I was pretty bad, and oh my gosh, ever since I came out of that, I've had so many experiences talking about evolution and other things. It's just a mess, man. And I'm all over the place because I didn't formulate what I wanted to talk about. But nah, man, I think what you do is awesome. I've seen you on my feed every now and then before, but now I'm actually just looking into you a lot, and that I don't know if I have time to mention this, but that Steven Crowder video you did, oh my goodness.
No, the abortion one?
No, the left has a pedophilia agenda or something.
Oh, that one. That one bothered me because when I looked at his actual video, I went, hold on. Let's see here. Is this going to be just non sequitur the video? Yeah, this is non sequitur the video. He's gonna make all of the worst conclusions.
Yeah, my friend actually told me, he sent me a video, like an 8-minute video on Crowder talking about paper straws, and I was like, I really don't want to look at this, but I did, and he basically roped in so many different things that weren't even related, and even started talking about something related to the Green New Deal, and he mentioned our white privilege electric cars. I'm like, you just sound like a motherfucker who's citing stuff. He didn't give the sources, as you know.
He's got the talking point blender. He just throws all the talking points in the blender, and whatever sludge comes out, he just feeds it to people and goes, hey, do you like this?
And he's just throwing out the buzzwords that signal to his audience, and just... I was like, okay, I thought because I never knew about him, I thought Steven Crowder is another typical one. No, it seems like he's getting close to Alex Jones level type stuff.
You know, the thing that I can't stand about Crowder is he does... Hunter Avalon does this as well, and it bothers me as well. Is that
I was kind of bothered that I liked him a few months ago.
They'll post, like, on the actual video, they'll post a quote from their source, and then they'll continue on, but they'll never actually post the source itself. And for Crowder, I can kind of understand, because Crowder doesn't do edited content. Crowder does a live show, and yeah, when I do a live show, there's a lot of times where I'm just like, I couldn't be bothered to post all my sources in there.
Right.
Except for the fact that Crowder has a team behind him, so maybe I shouldn't be...
Yeah, that could be corrected.
That could be corrected
easily
by having his team that does a lot of research for him show those sources. But with Hunter, since he does primarily edited content, I don't have a whole lot of care for the fact that Hunter doesn't show his sources in his description, because when I'm making a claim and I'm like, this claim, like if I make a claim on gender and somebody's like, that sounds a little weird, I'm like, well, as it turns out, I have 14 sources that I can use here. One of them, when they say, well, none of these have been research papers, actually, no, a few of them are. In fact, one of them is. It's by George Zimmerman and Candace Wallace. So I'm ready and willing to have my sources just thrown at people when I need to. And I do that for my edited content, and I produce content at roughly the same rate. If I'm talking about just edited content, I think me and Hunter produce at about the same rate. So it's like I don't have a lot of love for somebody who will not post their sources for their audience to read, because for me, posting the sources isn't just a credibility issue. It's sending it to your audience and letting your audience fact check you. Because if your audience fact checks you and realizes that, oh, wait a minute, something in this doesn't sound right, something in this doesn't sound correct, and they get to go into the sources and go, well, you've pulled something out of this source that's wrong. I'd prefer being able to throw that at my audience and go, hey, fact check me, make sure that I'm right or make sure that I'm wrong, as opposed to just saying, accept what I've said as law, because it is.
Yeah, that's I don't make videos or anything, but whenever I get into a serious conversation with someone, I got a list in a notebook here just in case, because they're the ones that come up a million times. It's like, okay, go to this and go to here. Like politics and stuff, they talk to me about, oh, the gun crime being, oh, yeah, more guns equals less crime. Yeah, I got my sources on that. You're dead ass wrong. Because
Yeah,
if
what
that
I-
were the case, America would be the safest country in the world.
Yeah, what I find when it comes to the gun debate also is that everybody wants to blame. There's people who want to blame the guns existing, and that's wrong. There's people who want to blame mental illness, and that's wrong. There's people who want to blame video games now again, and that's wrong. So just like, guys, have you noticed the one thing that America has that is different than other countries? That is that our culture is very, very machismo, very, very pro-gun, and that guns are measuring sticks for penises. At that point, yeah, that's a part of the culture that I think is an issue. But like the actual guns themselves existing, no, there are other cultures who also have lots of guns or less guns, and the issues are not there. I think it comes down to a culture one when you look at a lot of the
I
evidence.
agree. I do tell people, like, mental illness can be a factor, but it's not like a large, at least I don't think so, one of the big reasons why. But that's just what I talk to people about. Like what you said, it's our culture. Mental illness, I'm like, yes, that can be a factor, but also you got to recognize that in this country, mental illness is not exactly well handled. And that's one problem.
Yeah, it's bothersome. This is the reason why when people like Avalon and people like Crowder don't show their sources at all, I get upset because I'm like, now I've got to spend the time to track down your sources, and after I've tracked down your source, it may or may not even be the correct one, and it's a pain. It really is a pain, and it doesn't need to be. It's a very simple thing to go, hey, I looked at this article as a reference when I was making my video. Copy paste into Notepad.
If you don't mind, I would like to ask a question that I've been meaning to ask people, and it can be a pretty big thing, but I just want to make sure you're okay with that first.
Sure. I've been in more uncomfortable situations than being on Discord Live.
Well, okay, I just want to preface this by saying, no, I'm not trying to be inflammatory or offend anyone or say this isn't real or anything, but on the gender thing, like, I understand, like, yes, there's XY chromosome, and then there's other variants of that.
Okay, but you're not talking about gender now. There's where you
sex. You're correct. You're correct.
You're talking about sex.
My bad. Well, I guess what I'm trying to understand on the transgender issue, obviously, because I told you my fiance is trans. You know, it's being transgender is the actual thing. Like, for example, like the gray matter in the brain and stuff. I guess just what I've always had a hard time understanding that maybe you could clear up for me is when people talk about demi-gender or stuff like that, I never understand it, because what goes through my mind after hearing from what people say, in my mind I'm like, just because you dress a different way than you're normal in the society doesn't mean you're this. Like, I just have a very hard time understanding, because what goes through my mind is like, preferences and personality traits don't make a new gender, but
well, hold on. Here's where the confusion's lying. I think you are dialing repeatedly without meaning to, dialing gender back to sex. When you say, I don't think you can make a new X because it doesn't exist because it's in your head at this point if it's a personality thing, I think you are repeatedly dialing back to sex, and you can't dial gender back to sex, because if we're talking about the sciences that are involved here, so we're talking about biology and sociology. Biology, we're dealing about sex. Sociology, we're dealing about gender. If we're dealing with the sociological construct of gender, we are dealing with something that is constructed in the head. That's what we're dealing with, period. Okay. As for people assigning different labels to that, we can disagree on whether or not any label between male and female is useful. So, for instance, I think that pronoun-wise, they, them is probably the most useful middle ground, like of anything that you can find. And as a default, when somebody says that they don't use they, them as a singular, my question is, well, if you don't know the gender of a person when you're asking who dropped their wallet, I just did it right there and you didn't notice.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So, but when we're having the
sorry,
conversation, give me just a second. when we're having the conversation, we have to first understand that we're talking about gender specifically. Gender deals with the sociological aspect of this, the social construct, how it is built in societies. For instance, there are societies in the East that have a concept of twin spirits. They have a concept of the Hedra. And these are all different gender concepts. And also, what we consider masculine, for instance, we consider blue a masculine color here in the States.
Right.
But about 80 years ago, we did not consider blue a masculine color. We considered pink a masculine
yes, the
color.
pink and blue syndrome.
These things, the blue being associated, the blue's not associated with a sex. There's nothing about someone's chromosomes that get you to blue. There's nothing about somebody's genitalia that get you to blue. However, gender, the social construction of these things, does get us to blue equals this. That's the constructed side. So what we're dealing with is a phenomenon that is constructed not just in the heads of individuals, but it's constructed in the heads of society at norms. So when somebody's incredibly, we've seen a demonstration of this in the chat, by the way, when somebody's incredibly happy that, oh, they're going to the gym and they're hyper masculine and all that other fun stuff, we associate that instantaneously in our society with guys. Well, why do we do that? There's no biological component to it, so we must be dealing with only the sociological component. Well, what sociological thing are we dealing with? Well, we're dealing with gender. When somebody finds themselves in an area between, we have a few words for that. If somebody finds themselves as, say, a demigender, any type of non-binary, any type of NB, they look at those two extremes, those two bimodal extremes, and find that neither of them really fit them in the way that we would classically assign. So,
correct.
Let's say, as an example, somebody feels one day. Let's take gender fluid as an example. Somebody feels one day.
I have an example that actually someone relayed to me, so maybe you can help me get more insight on this.
Sure.
I'm a guy. You know, I don't really give a shit what gender I am. I could wake up tomorrow and be a woman with all my memories replaced with everyone of me being a woman. I really would not give a shit. But I do have more appreciation for femininity or feminine. And one of my friends came to me. He told me, dude, you don't want to fucking gender fluid." I was like, "No, I'm not. Just because I like these things doesn't really, like, I brought all this up because I've been meaning to ask someone who knows what they're talking about, and I'm not presenting it as, oh, this is the way I think and it's not real. I do not understand it. I've always had a hard time with it.
Nope, that's fair.
I'm not trying to be inflammatory or anything to anyone. I just do not understand.
So the statement, "I don't care what I would be," is probably one of the biggest signs that you would not be gender fluid. However, if somebody if somebody finds themselves in a situation where bimodal extreme 1, what we know as masculine, they actually feel that one day. They feel they're more masculine. But then tomorrow, they are in bimodal extreme 2. They feel like they are more feminine. And they bounce between these two. Well, their gender is moving in such a way that we would give it a descriptor. It's moving a little bit like a liquid. It's going between the two depending on where you shift the bottle. So there's where the idea of something being a gender fluid comes in. It's literally gender acting as a liquid, being able to move between two things, because this is largely constructed by A, society, and B, the individual's mind. Luckily, though, because we are talking about something that's constructed also in an individual's mind that you can't control. Something being constructed in your mind does not suddenly mean you can control it. It just means that that's where the magic happens, as it were. When that construction is happening, you can't control that.
Right.
So, but that's where we realize that, okay, well, this is actually part of somebody's identity now, more than anything. So their identity would be gender fluid. Sometimes they are more masculine, sometimes they are more feminine. It does not necessarily mean that they want to change their pronouns. It doesn't necessarily mean that they would like to transition in a medical sense, but they are a form of trans, as insofar as the working term for trans is anybody that is not cis. If their identity lies outside of what we consider the bimodal set for cis, then they are trans. I don't find that to be the most useful thing, because I think a lot of communication problems happen as a result of that. I think we need a better word, but right now, trans literally just means not cis.
Well, from the way I understand it, like, I've always had a problem with people saying transgender that doesn't refer to someone who identifies as the opposite sex from which they were born as.
Well, then you could
I've always
use...
had kind of like just help me out here, but when people say it's an umbrella term, I don't understand how when they're trans because they're transitioning to the opposite sex or
Trans does not mean transitioning. We're having an etymology issue here.
Okay.
So give me 1 second here.
Again, just making it clear, I'm not like trying to be inflammatory. I'm mentioning this from a place of confusion, and I do not understand these kind of things.
Fair. So where we get the issue is that Vosh actually does a better job of explaining this than I do, and that sucks because I don't have him on hand here. But the etymology for trans is trans plus gender. And we're looking at trans. Trans is not a shorthand for transition. Trans as a prefix etymologically can mean across, through, over, beyond. It can mean other side. It can also mean a compound in which two atoms are situated on opposite sides. So trans means more than just a shortened version of transitioning. So somebody does not have to be in the act of transitioning to be trans.
Okay.
I think there's where the confusion lies. It sounds...
Well, there, you gave it to me. I got the answer now. I'm just...
I agree that it comes with a lot of linguistic issues because, like, intuitively, when somebody says trans, we go, oh, that's a shorthand for transition. That means that you're transitioning. That's the intuitive.
Yeah.
That's the intuitive view of it, and I think there's where the problems largely stem.
Yeah, I like the NB term because it eliminated that confusion and misunderstanding for me personally.
No, and
that's why I like the NB term.
And that's one of the reasons why, like, even though, for instance, by the definition of transgender, meaning anybody that's not cis, all of my partners are trans. But many of them did not.
Awesome.
Many of them did not identify specifically as trans in any capacity until we all, like, universally disagreed on it, and then we started looking at the etymology of the term and went, well, no, actually, the term does fit, even if we don't agree that it's useful. Like, me as a pragmatist, I look at the term trans, and I say that is not very useful. That's not a useful way to communicate that idea. But right now, it's the only way that we have, because for us to have a different way to communicate that idea would require us to have some societal change.
Which would be very difficult.
It would. And in the attempt to have different words to describe this phenomenon, we have created a bit of a problem with a lot of your neopronouns, a lot of your this is demigender, this is that, this is the other thing, and I'm fine with people using those as individual labels. Those are fine. That's somebody else's identity, not mine. I can't assign them their identity.
Agreed.
But I do wish that the umbrella term, as it existed, did change in some way. If you've a good debate to watch, if you watch debates at all.
I do.
Have you seen the debate between Vosh and Blair White?
No, I have not, but let's get down here.
So Blair White in that debate takes it. It's strangely enough, there's two things that happened during this debate. First of all, before the debate happened, ContraPoints made a video where a hypothetical character that she created was a transmedicalist, and then ContraPoints existed as somebody who was not a transmedicalist, but they were trans per the looser definition, and they had their conversation. And in this hypothetical conversation that happened, this awkward scenario came apart where when Vosh and Blair White had their conversation, it was just the same exact hypothetical conversation that happened between Natalie and her construct in her video. That it was so close to the video from ContraPoints that it was scary. Like, the chat was literally just everybody yelling and screaming and going, "This is just the ContraPoints video, but real." It's like, yeah, no, this is just the ContraPoints video, but real.
Oh my god. Oh boy.
And I don't think that could have happened any other way. Like, there was no more perfect scenario in which those ideas got brought about in that way than the one that we got in that video. But it happened, and I'm glad that it happened, and it was neat. So I would highly suggest watching that video if you would like a demonstration in what
I will
happens
definitely
when.
keep. I will definitely keep that mark down. I will. I
Yeah,
already looked it up and saved it to my watch later.
It's a good one. It's a good one. And in the debate, they actually were very respectful to each other. But one of the things that happened in the debate that was important was that Vosh and Blair both agreed that there is an equivocation between the word. And I know that I'm spending a lot more time on this than usual, but we're in an interesting conversation. So I apologize to people waiting.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I brought in so much.
It's
feel
okay.
Bad.
It's okay. This is one of those important conversations. One of the things that Vosh and
Well, I
Blair
appreciate
agreed on was that the term, by just saying trans, when trans can mean any of the two things, transgender or transsexual, which is what we would consider a now outdated medical term. While we do consider the term largely outdated, there is an argument to be had now over whether or not the term needs to still exist, because that term allows you to have a separation between the sociological aspect of being trans, which is transgender, and then the biological aspect of this, which would be someone who's transsexual, somebody who's trying to take HRT or anything like that, in order to do that thing that was confusing originally, where trans just meant transition, which we know that etymologically it doesn't. Intuitively, that sounds correct, but etymologically, that's not the way those words work.
Yes, I see what you're saying, and it makes a lot more sense to me now, and I appreciate you clearing that up for me. My fiance, I guess I should make the clarification. My fiance is transgender, in the sense that, yes, she actually is on HRT. She's been on HRT for like a year and a half now. She's transitioning well, and she's already got her doctor's note for the SRS surgery. Now we're just waiting to get her in with a counselor for a while and get all that done. She's wonderful. I love her, and I'm so proud of her for coming out to her family, who was Christian, and the biggest shock in the world, they were actually super accepting, and her mom has actually helped her get all the stuff she needs to get through the process, or at least get access to it.
Hey,
and
it's definitely good that they've been able to have that conversation without as many issues as normally come up. Because normally, when you're having that conversation with a conservative Christian family, it doesn't go over very well, and it sucks.
It doesn't, and I've been engaged to her for 8 months, and another anniversary is coming up this Sunday, and we're gonna have a good time.
I hope you guys have a good time. My heart goes out to a lot of the people in my audience who are trans, because I do have, and I will admit this, I have a very disproportionate amount of trans people in my audience compared to other YouTubers. But I'm glad, because of the way that I operate and the way that I advocate for things on my channel, it ends up working out that I both attract an audience of trans people, and I'm trying to better the world for them in some way. So I'm glad that's the case. That said, is there anything else that you'd like to say in the last 30 seconds before we move on?
It's one thing I saw in your video, which was the last thing I wanted to say for a quick nit. I love the fact that I found a YouTuber who is an out Modica Magica fan. That is one of my favorite.
Modica Magica is one of those shows that if somebody in my audience has not seen it, you have done one of the closest things to committing a sin that you can. Please see it. Please watch it.
I have a wall scroll in my living room, a big one, and then there's one on my bedside in my bedroom.
Hold on,
it's so wonderful.
I just randomly got a picture snapped of me. That was strange. And now they've escaped.
Interesting.
My partners are weird. That said, I am going to go ahead and yeet you out of here and move on to the next person. I did enjoy our conversation, though, Uzi.
Thank you very much, and I'll keep watching. Thank you.
Alrighty. I think the next person we're going to grab in is Jack and Quill, assuming that he will unmute his microphone and undeafen himself. Also, we have a new mention. Where is that new mention, and why do I have a new mention? Oh, it's in fan art. Aha! I guess I must put fan art in while we are waiting for Jack to fix things. Go. Is this new or old? This is new. Doot. There we go. Jack and Quill, can you hear me? Oh no, they've hopped out. Let me try to pull you back in, Jack. There we go. Can you hear me?
Hello? Yay! Work. Yes.
Hey, how's it going?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm doing alright.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, God, things are looping. How do I make not loop?
No, play it. Oh god damn it.
Wait.
Oh. Okay. The people I'm dating are twerps. Anywho, Jack, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but everything is looping.
Oh, then turn off the stream.
Hang on.
Half the problem is probably that the stream is on as well.
Yeah, I can't just YouTube though. I don't think. Alright, I'll just turn off the video. Alright, the video has been turned off.
There you go. Now you shouldn't be
Okay.
hearing loops anymore.
Yeah, but now I can't watch you die in video games.
It's only for 5 or 6 minutes. You'll be all right. So how's your day going?
Oh, I'm doing alright, It's been pretty slow.
I see that you AFK'd and then came back to the conversation randomly being about gender.
Yep. Yeah, everybody else, I do night shift, so everybody else was leaving for the day, and everyone came in at once. Oh, good. And then I come back and it's just gender talk, and I'm like, oh boy.
You know, one of my I do enjoy having that conversation mainly because with the exception of the etymology, which now I know that I have to have the etymology of trans on hand. I forgot about that for some reason. But now that I know that I have to have that etymology on hand, that is one of the conversations that I do enjoy having.
Yeah, no, I super like that he was, like, really open and, like, accepting and just, like, questioning, because a lot of people, like, come in and, like, try to have that conversation, but they don't want to listen or know anything, and he just straight up was like, I don't know what the thing is.
Yeah, so he was like, well, it sounds like if it's, transgender, they're moving between these. I'm like, nope, I figured out where the problem is. I figured out where we have the miscommunication. Hold on.
Yep. Yeah. And then here's the thing is, like, I mean, you know, I don't know, maybe you don't know, but I talk about this, like, all the time, just because, like, I'm really out about it, and, like, people, like, ask because I'm out, and, like, I'm very, like, adamant about that, because sometimes people will, like, be afraid to ask because they, like, don't want to offend me, or I'm like, no. Please ask questions.
No, it's better. I view that as, and maybe this is just because I'm a YouTuber, so like my ability to be embarrassed is not as high as it once was. But for me, it feels like if you exist as part of a marginalized group, being able to vocally advocate for that group seems like that's more useful than otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, not even just like, I mean, obviously I do, like, advocate where I can, but just like everyday stuff for just like people who don't necessarily get it or just haven't been exposed to it, I try to be that exposure, and I've had people like come up and say like, hey, I didn't know anybody who was trans before I met you, and you like changed my perspective on that completely. So that was kind of cool.
No, that's definitely good, especially since well, I know that I would rather them meet somebody like you than somebody like, say, Blair White, because Blair White is a transmedical.
Oh, God, yeah, me too.
Blair White's a transmedicalist, and I think that transmedicalists are a lot more harmful than helpful in some cases.
Yeah, no, like, I am the opposite of gatekeeping. Like, I mean, as far as myself is concerned, like, I'm pretty much, like, black and white, just like, yeah, trans dudes, started HRT, etc. But, like, I'm not going to gatekeep against, like, NBs or just people being people,
It's like some X person exists. You're not going to tell them not to exist.
Yeah, and I mean, not just that, but I'm not going to tell them that, like, they're not trans or whatever, because, you know, they're part of that group. So.
Now, not to mention, you also one of my sticking points is almost always that I don't know this person's identity, and I'm not going to try to be the one that tells them what their identity is, because I will more than likely be wrong more often than I'm right.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes people who are, like, I get this a lot with some of my older friends who've, like, never really been exposed to it, but have like, started questioning themselves. Like, sometimes they'll be like, well, I feel this, that, or the other way, and I'm like, well, maybe that sounds like kind of this, but it's like, it's a thing they have to figure out for themselves.
Yeah, no.
So I just try to be there to educate, I guess.
Yeah, and I agree with that. For me, it comes down to it's never my place to tell somebody what their sexuality is, or what their gender is, or what any aspect of their identity is, unless of course it's something that I can like prove beyond a shadow of a doubt. So like if somebody says I'm an atheist and I believe in God, I'm like, we might have a problem.
What is the word I'm thinking of? I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, no, it's kind of self-defeating at that point.
Yeah, like that.
So,
like at that point, we know that okay. Well, obviously, this conversation is going to get real strange real quick if we have the God-believing atheist here.
Yeah, honestly, that just reminds me a lot of like some of Peterson's talking points. It's because he will just literally have his own quote-unquote definition be the opposite of what it is. It drives me a little bit. Hello?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Fire.
I'm just trying to.
Okay, sorry.
I'm trying to not die in a video game. It's not very easy.
See, okay, you're allowed to not die in video games right now because since the stream is off, I can't watch and laugh.
Oh, so I can't die while you're here.
Yes, exactly. You need to stay alive until I can get back, so then I can laugh.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad that that's what we need to do. As long as we agree that I have to stay alive long enough for you to make fun of me.
Yes, exactly. It's serious. It's my joy in life. Just looks so much fun.
Fair enough. Oh, and speaking of dying, I'm
why
sorry.
do you think so much fan art of you?
I'm sorry, but I did die without your consent.
Well,
it just happened.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
It just keeps happening. Yeah, no, that's fine. Oh man. So, before all of that got brought up with the previous person in stream chat, I was actually going to ask. I think I've heard you talk about it once or twice, and you mostly just think it's like a funny thought experiment or whatever, but not very useful. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on like the whole like flying spaghetti monster thing, and like people using it and like obviously not like believing it, but very like being very like dedicated, not pose exactly, but like being like, hey, this is, you know, my thing, and using that almost as like almost the same thing as like the Satanist church or whatever, where it's like fighting for like, you know, actually separating church and state via absurdism.
So I think that personally, the flying spaghetti monster, the most interesting thing that could happen with it is if a legitimately believing, like, non-satirical sect was formed within the next 100 years.
That would be hilarious.
If that happened...
And really interesting.
If that happened at all, that would be one of the best examples of how we know that religion... Because we can't say that all religions are phony, and we can't say that they're all correct, because there's always that chance that one of them is correct, and we'll figure that out when we die. Big oopsie. But what we can say is that there are certain religions that we can definitely say are 100% phony. There's no way around it. One of them, we can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, is this dude. And I know you can't see it, but it's I'm holding up my Book of Mormon.
Did you just pull out your Book of Mormon?
I just showed my Book of Mormon. Because we know the history.
When you reached it out, I was like, he's gonna go for his Book of Mormon, and then I hear you, and I'm like, yep, there he goes. Yeah, no, it's so interesting because you can actually trace the history.
Yes, like, because we can trace the history of Joseph Smith, we can tell that, okay, no, this is definitely phony, and it was built by a con man.
Yeah.
So I can...
Pretty explicitly.
yeah, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that, hey, we happen to have this huge issue here where this religion is definitely false, but much like what would happen with a flying spaghetti monster cult that was forming, is we have people who, even though they know the history of it, they see the history as proof that it must be real.
I do not understand Mormons. Like, listen, I mean, I was raised, you know, as a like Christian and stuff, but I got out of that when I was like 13, and I'm not going to say that makes me any smarter or whatever, but like I saw through a lot of like just regular old, you know, Church Protestant Christianity, whatever, pretty quick. And then it's like there's like adult people who believe just all the random batshit crazy that is Mormon, and I don't understand.
No, I agree. It's weird. Especially when
like,
you get out of like...
most religions I at least kind of understand, but like Mormonism, just, what?
Mormonism, Scientology is another one that, like, you look at its structure and you just go, wait, how do people not realize that's a scam? How is that a thing?
I haven't even looked into all the details of Scientology, but
the amount of money that it takes to be a Scientologist and actually get to clear, which, by the way, nobody's gotten to clear. You have to be a multimillionaire to be able to afford it.
I'm not sure what you mean by getting to clear.
Okay. So, with Scientology, they have this idea that you have multiple past lives. And while you're determining how to get to your past lives, or determine what you were in your past life, they make you go through this, I forget what it's called, but there's this process where you go through like an interview process where a Scientologist who's fancies himself a psychologist, we'll go ahead and say that that's the extent, they will go, okay, so I want you to, what do you see when you're like looking into your past? You go, okay, well, I see a barn. You go, okay, I want you to open the barn door. What do you see? And then you go, well, I don't see anything. It's just, I see the barn. That's it. And then they press you and press you and press you and try to get you to see something behind the barn door. A lot like reconstructing suppressed memories, except it's using the reconstruction method to construct whole new memories.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Auditing, that's what it is. It's called auditing. Persilis in the chat just told me what it was. So they try to get you to figure out what your past lives were, and then once you determine what your past lives were, what clear is called, clear is when you've successfully rooted out every past life that you had, every single one. Once you've been able to root out every past life that you've had, then you're in
and
clear.
let me guess, you have to pay for the quote-unquote psychologist.
Every single time you go into an auditing session, you have to, every test you take, everything you do, cost money. And on top of all that, nobody's made it to clear because every single time somebody gets there, they have like, I think at one point they had like 7 books that you had to get through 7 courses. And if anybody could get through all 7 courses, they were at clear. But every time somebody gets close to clear, they make it an 8 book.
They come out with a new course.
They come out with a new course. It's now an 8-book course. Now it's a 9-book course. Now it's a 10-book course.
Yeah. And people don't ever see this as a pyramid scheme.
Well, there are some people who do, and they get out, but there's a lot of people who don't. And it confuses me that they don't.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, like, buying into, like, that almost seems like somewhat of a believable scam, especially, like, once you started it, just because, like, that's how scams work, and, like, especially since it's almost a form of gaslighting is what it sounds like, which is pretty dang screwed up.
You also end up in the sunken cost fallacy, where, well, I'm so close to clear, I might as well continue trying to get to clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, it's agitating because, like, it's another one of those from the outside in things. It just looks really stupidly obvious.
Yeah. And, like, I don't know. Part of me is very much, like, understanding that, like, when you're in any kind of circumstance like that, like, when you're inside any circumstance, it's just hard to see it from any other kind of perspective. But then at the same time, I have my own experience where like I was in a religion like pretty involved, like basically every Sunday. Like my dad was a song leader, so it's like I was very much inside one of those situations, and I saw my way out. But at the same time, I understand that like that's not a universal experience, I guess. And like I don't think I'm like better for it or whatever, but I don't know.
Well,
or I don't think I'm better than anyone else. I think that I am personally better for it, but
yeah, you're better for not being in the cult, but not better than someone else for not being in the cult. No, and I would agree with that. Like I view myself as better and healthier since I've gotten out of young Earth creationism. But I don't view myself as better in some aspects to a young Earth creationist by not being one. Now, do I view myself as more moral? I think I can make an argument that I'm more moral than Yahweh. I'm willing to make that argument.
To be fair, you can make that argument about nearly any human being. There's very few people. Actually, you know what? I would say any, because like it comes down to a matter of finite and infinite crime or whatever versus finite and infinite punishment. Like humans can only do so much harm because they only have so much power, influence, and time. And then you get something like a deity, and they have a lot more of all of those.
Fair, but at that, my main thing is that I view genocide as like something that I would be willing to strip the humanity away from someone if they committed genocide, because at that point they tried to eliminate part of humanity. So do you really deserve your humanity anymore? Okay, well if we're made in God's image, there is a type of humanity that is assigned to God, and if we agree with those premises, if God is a genocider, which the God of the Bible is, would we revoke the human aspect of him? Fuck yes, we would. Absolutely. Get rid of it. Yeet it. Delete it.
Yeah. Well, then it comes down to the matter of like, I don't know, something I always try to like keep hold of is like all the worst monsters are human or whatever, and it doesn't make them like not monsters. It's weird because like I very much try not to like dehumanize people. Even if, like, I may think they're disgusting pieces of shit, like, they're still disgusting pieces of shit humans. It's almost the same thing as, like, you were saying the other day about,
Jessica Yaniv.
What is her name? Yaniv? Yeah. Yeah, you know exactly where I was going with that one, huh?
Yeah. No, when somebody says that, they've lost the privilege to their gender, and I'm like, how? What did they do to lose the... What about what they did has anything to do with their gender? None of it. Yes, they're a when somebody's like, oh, what do you think of Jessica Yaniv? My answer is almost an instantaneous, they're a piece of human fucking garbage. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. This person is a predator. This person's a piece of garbage. This person is a bad representation to a community that is marginalized. This person is horrible in every way, shape, and form. And were they to not exist tomorrow... they're not even a useful idiot because they're more useful to the other side. Were this person to not exist tomorrow, it wouldn't affect me. Like, there are certain people who, if I stopped hearing about them for months on end, my day wouldn't change. Steven Anderson's one of them. Jessica's one of them. And it's like, these are people who I think are horrible. But does this mean that I'm magically going to misgender Jessica? Well, no. That's completely separate from everything.
Yeah, and because then it almost hinges someone's like identity as a person on their like morals and actions, and it's like, well, those are like separate. Like someone is still a person, even if again they're a garbage person, and like there are those things about them, you know.
Well, and even at that point, if we're gonna hinge somebody's like claim to their identity on their morals, we recognize that morals are largely determined by individuals. So if they don't line up with my individual morals, but they line up with someone else's individual morals, like say society as an example, why does that become a good litmus test? I don't want to say his name, but I have a friend who has who does have the whole like, well, they're a bad person, therefore I'm going to misgender them idea, and it was to somebody who we both dislike greatly.
Jack and Quill, I wanted to say that I love you. Bye.
Wait, what?
That was Raz. Raz wanted to come in and be a heckin' gay.
Tell her I said hi.
She can hear you, I'm sure. But
Yes.
with if we're determining somebody's identity is like hinging on whether or not they adhere to our moral code, I don't see how that works, because we still treat, like, even criminals we still treat like humans. So what is, well, so we treat them like humans, but we treat them like humans in is that they don't lose individual human rights in many cases. Many, not all.
Oh no, yeah, I was mostly just like glaring at the American injustice system is what I'm gonna call it.
It's not a very functional
but,
justice system.
No. But yeah, no. So it's like, I mean, people do this like a lot actually. Is where they'll think like, oh, you know, it doesn't align up with like my morals or like my beliefs or whatever, and then they'll use that to like invalidate someone's identity. Like, even if it's not like an obvious thing, like Jessica Eve, like sometimes I'll get Christians where they're like, well, I don't think it's moral to like be gay or be trans, and then they're like, well, you're not trans. And I'm like, sorry, what? Or they don't even think it exists because they deem it quote unquote immoral. Yeah. So that gives you a good idea of like why this is a horrid litmus test.
I know what lurks.
Because all it takes is one person not agreeing with how something's structured, and then all of a sudden they get to revoke somebody else's identity, which can come with all the problems that exist when you revoke somebody's identity, like certain rights that are applied to them no longer existing. Now, if this question is on an omnipotent God, I have no problem revoking those, because they're omnipotent. By definition, they can take it.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
It's like when somebody says that I've offended God, and I'm just like, but how?
It's so freaking petty. Yeah, no, every idea of that where I've heard where it's like an offense to God, I'm just like, he needs to deal with it and get over himself, because he, like, seriously, such, I mean, literally, what I'm trying to remember what it is, like, word for word, but it's like, you know, your God is a jealous God and a wrathful God. I'm like, get over yourself, grow the fuck up. Like, if you're gonna be all powerful, like, maybe be less of a piece of shit who's so easily, like, I really hate using the term, like, hashtag triggered or whatever, because I have my issues with that, but at the same time, sometimes, like, how that has taken on a cultural meaning. I'm willing
to reappropriate, or I'm willing to construct a different word for triggered, given that it has been kind of like eaten by society as meaning things other than having to do with mental issues. I'm willing to reappropriate it and just say they're Tumblr triggered, because that's where that appropriation came from. So
that's why I always say like hashtag triggered, because like that's basically how I differentiate. But,
that's fair.
That's a good way too.
And this is like when me and a friend of mine, they tried to argue that the stereotype that we hear a lot. I think I just grabbed the wrong thing. Oh well, whatever. There's a stereotype that we hear a lot when it comes to like SJWs, and they said that stereotype doesn't exist, and I just went, a cursory glance at Tumblr shows they do. Are they advocating for good things? Yes, but are they doing it in a good way? Absolutely not, and they do exist.
And it's not monolithic either. It's
no,
like,
it's not.
There's upsides and downsides and just really stupid sides sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of times it just comes down to like strict misinformation. Like one of my exes was of the opinion that gender and sex were the same thing, and also gender was a social construct. And I went,
hang on.
I was like, hold on a second.
Hang on.
Hold on.
Sorry, what?
We need
How
to have
does that even?
It was the reason why for it was the reason why for such a long time her and I butt heads on the issue of gender, because I was of the opinion that they were wrong, and it turns out I was right, but I didn't quite understand how and why they were wrong. And it's one of those things where, like, you're half right, but you're also half wrong, and the half wrong is the part we're going to concentrate on for a minute, because if you eliminated that, we'd be fine.
Yeah.
But no, they had that weird idea that these were the same thing and also operated differently, and that just that really bothered me, and I couldn't figure out why it bothered me until I learned later. Because at the time, my view on gender was the standard societal one, that it was the same thing, but there was no social construction. And then when I actually when I did the research and realized that, oh no, hold on, here's the problem. The problem is that it is socially constructed, but that word was coined to mean something completely different than what I thought. And it just upsets me now.
I'm trying to puzzle that out in my head, and I can't hold that much. No.
It doesn't work.
You saw Ocean's video on the Trinity, right? Like, this is the same kind of, like, mental brokenness that is happening in my brain right now.
Yeah. You're just like, I know something's wrong about this idea. I know it.
It's like the mental equivalent of looking at an Escher painting.
Something here doesn't add up, but what is it? No, but
there's too much dumb to find the source of the dumb.
No. But luckily, over time, I was able to study these things and learn that, oh, okay, no, there was a reason that idea didn't sound correct to me, but it wasn't the idea that I thought it was. Because I thought it was that, I was correct and my ex was wrong, but then I realized that, well, no, it's not that they're incorrect. It's that there's this one little thing that they're incorrect on in this whole idea. And once I can identify that, then we know, like, where the actual issue is.
Yeah, it's like I'm right and you're wrong, and then like 5 years down the road, it's like, well, no, I was wrong, but also you were still wrong.
Yeah, it's like the whole the PragerU video was Jesus a socialist. It's like, you're right, Jesus was not a socialist, but you're also wrong, and that we can then extrapolate from there that Jesus was a capitalist.
Without mercy.
Yeah, Jesus is a very interesting and inconsistent character.
Yep. Where does this go? Right there? This is probably not going to end very well.
What is happening?
Oh, I've constructed a team that is not going to operate very well at all, and it's largely my fault. But
you
that's
have prepared to die in video games again.
I'm about to, and I have 72 gold, so I have no excuse for dying right now. But it's going to happen anyway because I've constructed a bad team, and
We need to play video games sometime, sir.
We do. That said, though, do you have about 30 more seconds left before I go ahead and pull the next person in? Is there anything else you wanted to say, Jack?
Not a lot. Just like thanks in general for all the stuff you do. Like, just putting info out there, advocating for different groups. It's super cool.
Okay.
And also, I'm working on fan art, so be prepared.
You're working on fan art. I'm kind of scared, actually.
No, it's actually just like, it's relatively. It's not anything weird, but it was spoken into existence. So there you go.
Does it have to do with ocean and like things? I'm gonna take the giggling as a yes.
No, I'm laughing at that lack of sentence structure there. Yes. Mostly I'm just like having fun with this design, but I'll show you in a bit.
Speaking of designs, Bumblin' Bee has sent in 2 very thick fem Suris into fan art that are now on the stream.
Can't see the stream.
Well, you can see the stream here in 2 seconds.
Yes, alright, bye.
See you, Jack.
Later.
Alright, let's see. Do we have any super chats I need to get to? No. Sweet. We can just go ahead and continue. Who has been waiting in here a while? I think you have been waiting in here for a bit. Oriax.
Oh, hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I didn't expect this. Hi.
You've been roped in. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been an interesting week for me. I don't know. I guess I'll just go with my first instinct. And so I was gonna ask you originally. So how much do you know about like Satanism?
How much do I know about Satanism? Depends. What brand?
Oh, okay, cool. I was gonna say theistic.
I'm largely uneducated on theistic Satanism.
Okay. So I don't know where to go with this. So like, I don't know. I'm of that brand, so that's why I'm like, I don't know what to do about it. Like, no one seems to know anything, but I don't know how to really like go about, more or less educating people about it because, I remember a lot of times I get like the whole, oh that's spooky, so I'm not gonna like click that, kind of thing when it comes to like the imagery and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know how to like.
So I'm doing
Yeah.
I'm doing a little research on it right now. I also I got Shen. Yay! I thought that was going to work much worse than it did. So I'm doing a little research on it right now, just looking at the history of it, and it looks like one of the problems with theistic Satanism is that unlike the temple and the church sects of Satanism, which are not theistic, there's not a lot of structure for theistic Satanism, but there is a decent bit of history. But because there's no real structure, it's very hard to determine what beliefs are there for theistic Satanism outside of the individual Satanists.
Yeah, I think that's a good case there. I don't know. That is more or less the problem that I run into is that people usually just go and do their own thing more or less. They're more eclectic.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's so I mean like I don't know. More or less, I was just kind of like wondering like what you think of that kind of thing.
I mean, I'm an atheist, so
guess.
I don't see much. I don't see much point in being theistic, but I also don't see much point in being a Satanist, even outside of not being theistic. So, for me, it just comes down to if that's somebody's individual belief, that's fine, and I have no problem with that. But I don't see it as terribly useful, I guess is the best way to say it.
I mean that's fair enough. I would also say that there's also components to it of like obviously ritual and meditation and stuff like that that do have positive effects. But that wouldn't necessarily mean, of course, that you would have to believe in those deities. So, I mean, I suppose you could be. Well, I don't know.
I guess for me is my biggest thing, and maybe this just comes down to being a pragmatist, but my question with any type of theism usually comes down to, is there something gained from this thing that is useful that we would not be able to find or manufacture elsewise?
In regards to like gods, or in regards to like the actions?
The actions, because the actions are informed by gods 9 times out of 10. But I also don't find the gods to be terribly useful either. It's not me saying that they're ontologically real or not, but I don't find them to be terribly useful outside of being like structures to live up to. Not structures, that's not the word for it.
Like ideals.
Ideals to live up to would probably be the closest thing. I don't find it to be useful outside of like showing what an ideal thing is. And even then, some cases, some gods, if we're looking at polytheism, there are gods who do not exhibit what we would consider ideal personality traits. A lot of them are very heavily flawed.
Yeah.
Or, again, if we're looking at the Christian God, we wouldn't just say heavily flawed, we would say freaking maniac.
Yeah, or just completely evil, however you want to view it.
No, I'm fine with completely evil. That, I agree with that.
Yeah, there are some deities that I had someone who runs the same kind of thing that I do, and they talk about these things. And I remember them telling me, they're like, I was telling them about a personal stuff, and they're like, oh, talk to this god, like they're all about this and that, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like this isn't in like anything that I researched. So like what? And I just kind of left it at that, because again, it's a very individualistic thing, and I've gotten better results out of other things. I don't know. I mean, outside of like this, that, and the other, I can't really, like, there's no. I think the one thing is I was an atheist, then went off and had experiences, and then came to this, which is not something a lot of people know about or really even like try to contend with, because I remember I told a youth pastor about that, and they were just like, oh yeah, and they defined it so poorly. I was actually mad at them for defining it poorly. I wasn't even mad at the conversation itself.
Just mad that they were defining Satanism poorly.
Well, I told them that I'm not an atheist, and they essentially took it down to atheistic Satanism, and I'm like, I didn't have because of how they speak, you don't get a word in, so I never was able to correct him. So the conversation was completely disjointed the entire time. And he was a nice dude, but I mean, it's like saying to an atheist that they believe in God repeatedly over and over, and it's like eventually it gets to the point where it's just so insulting you don't want to continue the conversation, because that's not your position.
You know, it's really agitating when somebody strawmans your position really hard when there's really no reason for them to, because I can understand the information sometimes not being available. For instance, most Satanists are non-theistic, so I can understand somebody making that mistake once, but once you've corrected them, once you've said, well, no, I actually don't believe in the non-existence of this deity, I believe this deity does in fact exist in some form or fashion, then for them to continue down the path of being incorrect is really strange. That's kind of where I was with it, because I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, do I kind of let them speak, or how do I go about it? But I don't know. It's the whole thing of like, that's why I think I'm going to have to end up doing something about this, because like I don't see my position changing, but I also want to educate people about it, but I don't want to spend every ounce doing that. Well, and even if your position did change, there would still be use behind educating people on the ins and outs of it, because misconceptions are a problem in any case. So even if your position were to change at some point down the road, there would still be use that was gained in educating people on how it works.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even you're right. Even if it would change, it would still be worth it.
Yeah, because there are people who, when they hear Satanism, much like me and much like the pastor you were talking about, all they hear is the atheistic variants of Satanism. Like, whenever somebody tries to tell me that Satanists believe in Satan, my go-to is to immediately correct them and go, no, they don't. Because 99% of the time,
yeah,
99% of the time, that statement is correct.
Yeah. And even when I talk to other people, usually when they're talking about someone like that, they are talking about, you know, the atheistic ones, and like that's all fine and dandy. I have my personal gripes with that, and that's a whole nother subject. But it comes down to a like, it's fine, but you like there are even different sections of even that, so it goes even deeper. So even trying to categorize it becomes a problem. So that's it. So it's kind of like that's why I wanted to like go into this, but I also don't know if it's even worth the endeavor, because a lot of people, especially from what I see, just categorize hell, even atheists is just like the whole like they eat babies kind of thing, you know, like those types.
I mean,
like, I run into those types.
So the problem that you run into there is that people don't understand how wonderfully crunchy babies are. I know, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But no, I understand what you mean. Though I would say that people have misconceptions is a very bad reason for not wanting to correct those misconceptions. Because to me, if people have misconceptions, like on large scale, which they do when it comes to Satanism, because obviously you are a theistic Satanist, you fall outside of the category that most people are used to when they hear the term Satanist. Because you happen to fall outside of this, it would behoove you, at least for your own sanity, to correct some people on this and how it functions. Because they're going to hold, otherwise, without being corrected, they're going to hold that all Satanists are atheistic, all Satanists believe X, Y, and Z, but you, by existing, can show them that's not the case. Just like for me, there is use in me maintaining my label as a skeptic, outside of the fact that obviously I do identify as a skeptic. I feel like I operate as one. I try to make sure that any opinion that I hold is sourced in some form or another. But past that, there is a utility to simply having the name skeptic and running a channel the way that I do. Because there are a lot of people who, when they hear skeptic, they hear 2016 anti-SJW YouTube, Sargon of Akkad. They hear a lot of that when they hear skeptic. So there is utility in me existing as a juxtaposition to that idea, because I am a skeptic, but I am also not an anti-SJW. I do think that what we classically consider as SJW behavior is less useful than beneficial, but I'm also not going to tell somebody that their advocacy should stop merely by merit of it being cringy. Now, if somebody engages in a type of toxic advocacy, then we have a problem, and I may step in at that point and say, hey, what you're doing is, largely harmful. I know you think you're doing the right thing, and I know you're fighting for the right cause, but could you maybe not? So there's an argument to be had there, but by and large, if we are talking about making sure that we are an accurate representation of our groups, while also showing that these groups don't behave in the way that other people think they ought to behave at all times, there is merit in letting yourself be an example for education.
So essentially just do it for the educational purposes, because people are going to misconstrue, like, more or less what they think of with the labels themselves.
Yeah, people are gonna be wrong. You can't stop them from being wrong, but you can at least make sure that the information is out there so that they have fewer excuses to be wrong.
I suppose that's a better way of doing it. Yeah.
But that's not saying that you have to adhere to my method, because that's basically my method. Is going, I do this thing because I know that like when I made my channel, I almost took the skeptic part off of it and just relabeled as just Suris, and then after a while I went, no, hold on. There's merit in me keeping that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not just going to erase that part of my channel because I think that there's a negative connotation to skeptic. I still get messages where somebody's like, it's not 2016 anymore. Why are you calling yourself a skeptic? Yeah, I still get that shit all the time. So...
Yeah, I've only done a little bit of stuff here and there because my situation makes it a little hard. But for the most part, I have gotten some fantastic, like really extremist Christians that come on and they're just like, "I'm gonna pray for you," and then they have the whole like God loves you, like the whole 9 yards, and I'm like, you realize where you are, right? Like. I remember how you said that on your channel and all that, it's essentially your house. And I actually quite like that, because it just like, you just come into my house and just start like saying random stuff about things that, you're not really aware of. Like, I'm going to laugh at you.
Yeah, it's like when somebody hops into my server and they try to spout a bunch of really conservative talking points that are padly sourced and all that fun stuff. And I'm just like, is this really the place you want to do that? Because, like, a lot of the people in my server are ready to take you into one of the debate channels and beat the crap out of you there. Is this the place? Is this the time?
Well, as far as far as that's gone, I've kind of either with exposure to your server or just my own choices in general, I've kind of more or less been I've been more right, and I'm still right to some degree, but at least I can at least be corrected nicely within your server for the most part. I haven't had any real real problems even when it comes to politics. Usually it's just been the whole like oh, like here's why you're wrong here and there, and I'll usually listen to it. So I mean, it's pretty. You've done a pretty good job cleaning house there, then.
Oh yeah, because people who end up fighting and aren't respectful, even if somebody's like really far on the left, I know that there's people in my server who disagree with me on a lot of stuff who can agree. The mere fact that somebody hops in my server and happens to agree with a lot of like left-wing politics, that does not mean you're safe from getting banned for being an asshole. I don't care if we agree on 99% of things. If you come in and you make an ass of yourself, you can get knocked out. It's fine. We don't mind that.
As well as they should.
No, and it's not me trying to tone police people who are having conversations in my server. It's more just, if you want to have these conversations, that's fine, but please have them in a way that's constructive. As an example, I think I've said this on a video recently, the reason that I don't find violence outside of, like, once you're stuck in wartime and now you have to, the reason that I don't find violence to be a terribly useful method of debate whenever somebody says, oh, you wouldn't say that to me if you were sitting across from me. I don't find that useful because let's say that I had a really bigoted opinion and you broke my nose. Cool, now I have a bigoted opinion and a broken nose. Nothing's really changed.
Yeah, that's the whole like don't punch people for their opinions, because I actually have been assaulted for an opinion that I held, and all it did was dive me further into thinking I was right. Of course, it took a civil conversation for me to consider the other points, because you don't literally punch sense into people, and I think people usually forget that. You have to have a cogent argument if they're a rational person, which usually people are.
The only I've laid out a few situations in which I would be willing to get violent with an individual. One of them is, for instance, if Emmett, Raz, or Aaron were told that, like, what's happening right now where, oh, you can't make certain medical exceptions for an abortion. If I had a doctor that looked at them, knowing their history, where two of them have had to get abortions because they would die otherwise, a doctor then said, no, you have to carry to term, and would not allow for an abortion. In a situation like that, it would be very hard for me not to justify a level of violence, because at that point, this doctor, in quotation marks, has managed to sentence one of my loved ones to death. Yeah, it'd be very hard for me to make an argument that violence was not warranted in some way. That's like, yeah. But that's really one of the few exceptions I can make where I can go, no, here's a situation where I think that a case could be made. And again, the other case is obviously, if you're in the middle of wartime or something, you're not going to change your opponent's mind with a quick turn of tongue.
Yeah. But definitely most people can, I at least hope most people can kind of get the whole, I remember, just forget that. I was talking, I mean, you were talking about before, like trans issues and stuff, and I was under, of course, since I was more right-wing, I was under the impression before, and I remind people of this all the time, that I was very against all that. Like, I was very in that camp, and then it took me meeting someone and then having them explain to me, like, and they just brushed it off. They didn't make it a whole thing. It was just, oh yeah, that's who I am. You want to play a game? Like, that was literally their sentence in that moment. And then they also explained to me through the science that currently exists, that the case is not that it's a choice, it's that it is something that exists within the brain, and that it's more of a, like, they have this brain and that sort of thing. And I don't want to get into details because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it's more of a, like, I then had to consider it, and then eventually changed my mind about it. Then going through, like, dating this person and dating someone like that now, but it's a whole nother thing of, like, you can change people's mind. It just takes time and it takes patience. but not everyone is like evil on purpose.
You know,
Like,
there's
even if you-
never attribute to malice what you can instead attribute to ignorance, and never attribute to malice what you could also attribute to stupidity, and never attribute to stupidity what you could also attribute to ignorance. Somebody may just be uneducated, not stupid, and somebody may just be stupid, not malignant. That's not to say that they are always those things. Sometimes people are just being malicious. I would argue that somebody like Nick Fuentes is both stupid and malicious. But in a lot of cases, I can't say that person X who's done, horrible thing Y is definitely evil or definitely horrible or definitely a Nazi. No, I would have to go, well, no, this individual does X, Y, and Z. They are bad. Why do they do these things? Do they do these things because they think it's the right thing to do? Or do they do these things because they're legitimately a horrible person? Or do they think it's the right thing to do because they're a horrible person? There's nuance to it.
Yeah, I remember. I remember the last stream you had on that really nice kid, and you guys kind of went through with you and Ocean, and Ocean sat there awkwardly, but you just kind of went through and was just very like, okay, look at what's going on here, like look at, here's some of the information, but besides that, we really can't like do much more about your personal opinion. And that was a very nice way you guys put that, I think, because it was a very just, okay, well, you just might not be too educated on the subject. Here's how you can, further like look at this if you want to. Like, here's how you can educate yourself on that.
Yeah, it's where you determine, is this a moment where I need to stomp on somebody's throat in front of my audience so they can understand what happens when somebody's that wrong? Or is this a moment where we need to have a teaching moment? Somebody's just honestly doesn't understand and they're willing to learn. Like, which thing are we dealing with? In that situation, it seemed like we were dealing with somebody who just didn't understand. So the question did not come down to, how hard can I step on this person's throat to show what happens when somebody's a bigot? The question comes down to, okay, what steps do I need to take so this person can at least understand what conversation we're having, and then they can form an opinion. It may be the wrong one, but they could at least form an educated one. It's okay to be wrong, but it's not okay to be wrong by merit of not taking the time to understand what position is what.
Swiftly now.
Mm. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I actually had someone else approach me about one of those subjects, and I find it hysterical that at one point I was against it, and now I can answer questions about it. Mm-hmm. Because it's just like, it's one of those things that's just like where you're so against a subject that now you're answering questions on the other side of that subject, to where you can actually be like, no, this is how it is, because there was someone who I know personally who asked about that subject, and they're like, well, what about like trans people, and they were asking they were actually asking me because they knew I knew about it. And I only know about it because, again, I met someone who changed my opinion about it. So when I have those deep conversations with people, they know I at least know something on the subject, so I can offer information when other people don't have it as well. So it's definitely, yeah.
And I know how that feels, because for me, when I'm trying to determine, what subjects do I care about right now, trans issues are one, LGBTQ issues in general is a large one, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that I was once on the other side of the debate, arguing the other side, and trying vehemently to say that, no, homosexuality is a sin, you deserve to burn in hell. All homosexual people just want to fuck guys that are around them, and that makes them gross. Trans people are medically deluded. Like, all of that stuff was stuff that I thought at one point. And it's one of the reasons why my channel operates the way that it does, because I'm trying to go, okay, no, I know what it's like to think that way, because I did. Now let me see if I can't show some people that maybe their reasons for thinking what they're doing aren't really the best ones.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely commend you in that, because it's definitely good. It's something that I would want to either support you with or do myself, because it's definitely a better way of thinking, and it's a better method of trying to educate people.
Yeah, just letting people know that I've been on the other side of the aisle. This is what it was like. It was kind of dark over there. I really didn't like it too much.
Yeah. Actually, this is something I haven't thought of too much, but I'm gonna regret saying this. So I was before before I knew better, I was involved in a lot of the like neo-Nazi circles and stuff, and so I'm out of that. I condemn like all that stuff from that time period because I was a little bit more ignorant. But like this was before the Charlottesville thing, that event and that whole thing. But how? Let me ask you, how, if I want to speak out about it, how would I be able to kind of like do the same thing with that as the other subjects? How would I be able to speak about that without people like immediately being like, "Oh, you're still one of them," because that's the last thing I really need.
Tell you what, we'll do this as the end of our conversation before we move into the next person. Have you seen the channel Faraday Speaks?
I do not think I have.
Faraday Speaks has a video that is basically details what happened when he went down the alt-right pipeline and how he got out of it. I would say that look at his channel because what he does seems to be like what you're trying to do, going, hey, I've been down that road. Let me show you maybe why that road wasn't the best place to be. That's like literally what he does.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely look at him now. So, all right.
So maybe looking at him as like as a structure, like, hey, if this is something that I want to do, this is somebody who does this and does it well. Maybe use them as an example to build off of.
Yeah. All right.
That said, is there anything else you'd like to say in the last 30 seconds before we move on to the next person?
Not that I can say out loud because again, situations. But
fair enough.
I will speak to you again one day and I will say it. Just
okay.
One day. But thanks for having me on. It's been definitely pretty good.
Okay. I just died again in 8th place while we were having our conversation. You cursed
And
me.
I have too many people dying on me. I swear.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Oh well. No,
Cycle of life.
I moved the jar. That's not what I meant to do. Alrighty. I need to
Later.
move Jack and Quill's thing in real quick.
Yeah. All right.
Go? It'll be just a moment. I gotta find where... What's it called? Photo. Aha! There it is. Give me just a second to do this. Boom. Alright, Jack and Quill, we are moving this here. I think I've probably got... Hello. How are you? There we go. Alrighty. Go ahead and move you there. Alright, so I think we're going to have time for probably 2 more people, and that's about it. So we're going to go ahead and move the next person in. Let's see. Boom. Chaos Lord, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you doing? God damn it. I didn't think I would get a chill. This is awkward.
You have been moved into the channel. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How's my mic?
Your mic is fine. It cuts out a little bit, but it's nothing that's that
Yeah,
horrible.
that's my university's internet. It's going from my computer to a router to another city up to the capital of Sweden and then out to the internet.
Fair enough. Yeah, that sounds like there'd be just a little bit of a bandwidth issue.
Yeah, and I'm needing to use the microphone that's next to my webcam on my laptop because the one on my headset has died.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's why I asked.
Fair enough. Well, it is probably as good as we are going to be able to get, given the setup that you have for your microphone.
Yeah.
So how's your day going?
Yeah. It's good. Well, day and day. It's 20 past 1 in the morning.
Well, it's daytime by merit of it being past midnight. It's fine.
Good. I don't really have some. I'm getting nervous. Sorry
Well,
about that.
I'll say the same thing that I said before to Cairo. There's no reason to be nervous except for all of those other reasons there are to be nervous.
You just made me even more nervous.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not very good at taking people off edge. I'm good at having conversation, at least I hope, in some capacity. But as far as...
I love your channel for your conversation skills. It's just I have never talked to someone like Meyer in like a capacity of someone big like that. It's just I'm starstruck basically.
Well, there's no reason. I will say this: there's no reason to be starstruck because one, there's nothing that I do on my channel that nobody else could do. There are literally other YouTubers who do exactly what I do, so it kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. But two, I am a normal guy who happens to run a channel, and that's the extent of it. So, past that, everything is normal.
Yeah. Do you have any subjects you are particularly?
Well, I'm currently playing Teamfight Tactics, and I'm doing absolutely horribly. I'm getting a 8th and 4th place are the two places that I seem to be in every time, which is great.
Yeah, seems awesome.
So you say you're at university. What are you studying?
Game programming, actually.
Game programming. Well, what types of games do you enjoy? Is usually there's a type of genre that somebody enjoys that they would like to build.
RPGs and strategy.
RPGs and strategy. Okay, then what is your favorite RPG game?
Mount and Blade Warband.
I've heard a lot of good things about the Mount and Blade series, but I have not actually had a chance to play it myself.
It's really good. The only thing I do not like about it is the only thing I want it to have instead of what it has is basically I want them to change the system of how you gain proficiency with weapons. Because, they have a mix of two systems right now, and that puts me off.
I'm always torn when it comes to weapon systems. I really enjoy... There's two weapon systems that I enjoy. One, I kind of enjoy the weapon system that they have for World of Warcraft, the original weapon system they did, where characters started out at 0 proficiency for a weapon, and then you had to learn how to use a weapon. So, like, if you were a level 60 warrior, but you never used daggers throughout your entire journey, you just didn't get to use daggers effectively, unless you took the time to learn them.
That's basically... Mount and Blade has a system where you have points, which you have in the different kinds of weapons. You have one-handed, two-handed, crossbow, polar arms, a bow and arrow, that sort of stuff. And while you use the weapon, you gain proficiency points, and each time you gain a level, you also gain proficiency points. So you update weapons that you don't really use.
Fair. So in Warcraft, what they did was that you had a maximum amount of proficiency with any given weapon, but that proficiency cap, as it were, would raise every time you leveled up. So, for instance, a person would only be able to have 50 points in wielding hammers, swords, daggers, and everything at a certain level, but if they leveled up, they could have at most 55 points, which also meant that there was a lot more and a lot longer you had to spend with a weapon if you didn't use it at max level. The other...
I can understand. That's more akin. Have you played the original Dungeons and Dragons? Not Dungeons and Dragons, oh fuck me. Dungeons and Dragons is what I'm supposed to play. Friends. Later on, this more towards the weekend. But Dungeon Siege, have you played that?
I have not, no.
They have a system where they have offensive magic, basically support magic. They have ranged weapons, and they have melee weapons. Every time you use it, you gain experience points, and you gain levels based on that. And to use certain weapons, instead of having a personal character level, you have to have proficiency in the level of that kind of weapon. So a sword might be a level 5 proficiency in melee weapon.
Okay.
That's a system I like more because it's more realistic, and I like realism in my RPG.
That's fair. So I think for me, one of my favorite weapon systems. I don't know if you've played any of the Monster Hunter series.
No, I've watched through them, but I go on. My parents have been only getting their pensions since I was born, because both of them have hurt themselves while working, so they have had to take out their pensions. Which is why I'm happy I'm living in Sweden, because we have an actual system where the state actually pays you a minimum amount.
Fair enough. I know that I think New Zealand has something similar to that. I wish we had that here in the States. That would be neat, but we don't.
Yeah.
So one of the things that happens in the system in Monster Hunter that I really enjoy is that in Monster Hunter, you don't have weapon skills with any given weapon, but what you do have that I actually really enjoy is that the weapons all act fundamentally differently than one another to an extreme. So if you're wielding a sword and shield, you as a player have to learn how a sword and shield operates and all the different things you can do with it, and there's a lot. But if you want to then dual wield and do two swords at once, you have to unlearn everything you learn with sword and shield.
Or learn anew what you do with the dual wield, because you can't really knowledge, but basically you can suppress it.
Yeah, you can't use the knowledge. You can't say, well, I can wield a greatsword, so I must be able to wield a switch axe just fine. No, they're two. It's like learning a bicycle and then wanting to also learn a unicycle. Yeah, the buttons are the same and the pedals are the same, but the actual things you're going to have to do to make these two things operate are so fundamentally different.
Yeah, I can barely ride a bike. I have a balance issue since I was young, so I can't really do anything other than, I need to keep up speed, because that helps me keep my balance on the bike.
Riding a bike is kind of hard when you don't have a good sense of equilibrium.
Yeah.
Also,
I can basically fall over while standing up.
Yeah, also, I see that Zanju in the chat has said that they liked Monster Hunter Generations more than World, and I agree. Generations to me feels better than I haven't gotten a chance to play World, but from what I've seen of World, a lot of the things that I enjoy about Monster Hunter are absent in World, and that saddens me.
Yeah, I can't say anything because I haven't played them, but still. So yeah, I'm not gonna comment on it. Something I don't know.
That's fair. So now outside of that though, so your favorite RPG would be Mountain Blade Warband. Have you played Chrono Trigger?
At a friend's place when I was 7.
So you're very, very far removed from the experience now.
Yeah, it's like I remember seeing it once, basically. That's all.
That's fair. I don't know.
It's the same with Dark Souls. I played it once at a friend's place, and he banned me from ever playing it again because I beat a boss faster than.
Oh, see, I would normally the reason somebody gets banned from playing Dark Souls is because they've broken a controller or two.
No, I did the boss in 4 tries. He did it in his best 5.
So he was upset that you did better than him at his game.
Yeah.
Well, that sucks for him.
Well, he's the kind of guy that gets angry over most things. Especially when it came to me, because we were like a week from being stepbrothers.
A week from being stepbrothers?
Yeah, my dad and his mom were a week from getting married. Then they broke it off because him and me were like, I want to tear your head off. I want to tear your head off. He was, I hang out with you. He didn't really have many friends other than me, and I had one friend in my own age group, which I hung out with, and anytime I hung out at my place, or my dad with her, he'd interrupt always. And it was annoying. So when she went home, and he wanted to hang out again, I boiled over and basically wanted to grab him and punch his face in. I am not proud of that moment.
I would say that definitely would have been a bit of a thorn in the side of trying to establish a relationship.
Yeah, but we were living together, so he and I was okay when we weren't in the same house, because then I could have my friends over at my dad's place or me hanging out with them, and he couldn't come over and interrupt in the same manner.
Gotcha.
When we had the rooms next to each other, that was hard.
Yeah, I can see that being harder when you're in such close proximity. It's quite literally impossible to do anything besides breathe each other's air, as it were.
Yeah, and I just came to think of it. I actually grew up in the Bible Belt.
Bible Belt of the United States or Bible Belt of Sweden?
Of Sweden.
I wasn't even aware that Sweden had a Bible Belt.
It's you don't know the. We have divisions. We have Norrland, which is the north. We have Svealand, which is the middle part. Stockholm and all of that. You know, that's in there. And then you have Götaland, which is this, which are. And I grew up in the northern part of the south there areas, and that's where we have a party that's called the Christian Democrat, and there's where they get most of their votes. And Swedish Christians aren't really like, I see something that's called a normal American Christian, and he's an extremist.
Oh, so this is the whole Overton window that I've been talking about on my channel. The problem with how, like, in the States, our version of what's considered politically left is basically centrist everywhere else. And then...
Okay. Yeah, because basically you're more right than the party in Sweden, which was once called the Right Party. Like, they were basically... right in Swedish is hög, and party is parti, so they were called the Högerpartiet.
And yet, what is classically considered the left in the United States looks closer to that than what our right wing does. Our right wing looks
no.
crazy.
Your leftists are 5 kilometers right of the right extremists in Sweden.
Wait, so people like Bernie Sanders were considered a right-wing extremist where you are?
He was the closest thing we would consider to a right-wing politician in Sweden.
Holy crap! That's pretty bad.
Yeah, but basically, when you say, when I hear, like, oh, you have to pay to go with an ambulance, I'm just like, wait. That ain't.
Yeah, no, ambulances bankrupt people here.
Yeah. When I heard that the U.S. is the only place where you can hear a person say, "Don't call the ambulance," instead of someone screaming, "Call an ambulance." Yeah, it was like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it that way. It really is.
Yeah, because here in Sweden we have a system where it's like. It's 1,200 Swedish krona that you can pay, and when you have paid that, basically you have a 12-month period, a year, basically. But if you start in April, it's to the next April. So basically, they tally up the last 12 months, and if that exceeds 1,200 Swedish krona, you get a free card, which means the next visit. That is before the amount has gone below that, you get to go to the doctor.
Yeah, that's considered an alien concept here by and large. I also see that Quessa in the chat is saying, "What people have to pay for that stuff in the United States?" Yes, in the United States, everything costs money. We are the nation that coined the term "There's no such thing as a free lunch." So. When somebody is in desperate need and is dying, they are more likely to call an Uber because it is cheaper than an ambulance, because an ambulance ride in the United States is going to run you $900 to $3,000.
Yeah,
it's
we get it for free. You do not even have to pay. If you go with an ambulance, you don't have to pay. It's only when you see a doctor, a doctor looking at you costs 300, but it's not before you get to an actual doctor that you have to pay.
Yeah, whereas here, getting to
anything else is free. I had when your toenails growing into your toe, into the side of your toe, I had that, and people checked me over like 3-4 times. It wasn't before I was gonna get diagnosis by a doctor that I had to pay. Every other time, it was for free. I just went there. They checked it out. They said, okay, it looks good. Try and do this to alleviate. And then when the doctor had to come in because I had to get penicillin to, reduce this everything, so on and so forth. That's when it cost me 300. But that was 300.
Yeah, no, the states kind of suck for practically everything when it comes to medical. The only thing that we have good is that our medical, from what I understand, our medicine here is very high quality, and that's one of the benefits of us being capitalism. The problem is that high quality medicine doesn't mean jack shit if nobody can afford it. If nobody can buy the medicine, why does it matter that it's of a high quality? It's cool.
Yeah, and also, have you seen the insulin price in the US?
Yes, I have. I have a history of diabetes in my family, so I'm very well aware that that's screwed.
Because I've seen the production cost of that, and I'm just like, wait, that's a profit margin I would want. But I would not do it because I think it's unethical. Yeah. For me, seeing how much profit they take out is baffling. I can't understand the mindset of a person that would do that. That's how alien it is.
No, the mindset is profit above all else, and it's a very common mindset here in the States.
Yeah, that's why I said it's alien. I think about me. I think like starting up a healthcare company. That like if I were to, and I look at the profit margins some of your healthcare companies, and I'm just no, that ain't good. That ain't good at all.
Yeah, no, it's insane what people get away with having to pay here. A lot of that comes down to the fact that our country runs on insurance, and insurance companies get to actually bargain with hospitals over what prices should be charged for certain things. And that leads to higher amounts, because if the insurance is going to pay it anyway, then why not go ahead and increase the amount that is charged? The hospital gets to get more, and the insurance gets more, because there's more incentive for you to have insurance when healthcare isn't cheap. And it sucks that that's reality, but that is the reality that we live in.
Yeah, that it is. And your school system sucks.
Yes, it does. No, I agree. We have an industrial-age school system that is in desperate need of reform.
Okay, that part of the system here in Sweden also sucks, but here in Sweden, your parents can get punished if you do not go.
I think there is at least something here for being punished for
But you can't. But as a parent, you can't homeschool your kids. That is illegal.
It's illegal to homeschool there?
Yep. And we have very few religious schools because we have 9 years of school that are mandatory. You have a duty to go to school during those 9. It's actually called the school, which is school duty, and if you have kids, you can get money from the state. I can't really recall the name in English, but basically you get a certain amount for the kid age, and that is supposed to go towards clothes, food, and everything for the kid. That is to help pay for raising the child. And that money, if the kid skips enough school, that gets pulled out. Oh.
So there's massive incentive for your children to be educated, not just randomly drop out of school.
Yeah.
No, that's things that I would definitely like people to adopt here. But that said, we only got maybe about 30 more seconds before I have to bring in our last person. Is there anything else you'd like to say while you're here?
Only keep up the good work, because I watch your Computing Forever video, and I was like, I watched that guy for laptop reviews, not for.
And then he went right-wing extremist randomly.
Yeah, I watched him while he was like during the Anita Sarkeesian Gamergate years, early.
Yeah.
I watched him take down some worse arguments on the Sarkeesian side because, hey, I thought it, and then he went further and further and further right, and I kept going with him until I actually watched something from someone else which wasn't as right, and I saw them take down the same argument I just heard from one of the ones I was a fan of, and wait, they just said that, and that's, oh god.
Yeah, it's almost. I've noticed that there's a certain. Yeah, I forget what it's called when what you're watching, you end up adopting the ideas of what you're watching a lot. Without even realizing that you're doing it.
I try to keep an open mind of everything. That's why I watch you, and I watched some other stuff. Really, well, I can't really stand the really extreme right, because it's like I've watched Black Pigeon Speaks, and I wanna puke.
When I watch Black Pigeon Speaks, I want to slam my head into a wall. The dude, 3 Arrows has a very good takedown of Black Pigeon Speaks.
Yeah, I watched it, and yeah, I have put my head through several walls. I have almost tried putting my head through a literal brick wall, while watching some of the more extreme right people right now. Why? How can you think this?
Yeah, how people get to conclusions sometimes confuses me, but then again, I remember that in some ways I actually came to the same conclusions a long time ago. So
you were raised Christian.
Yep, I was raised Christian, was a religious fundamentalist, terribly homophobic, and all the other fun stuff. So at one point it's like it's weird for me to see people hold opinions that are really grossly uninformed, and then I look back at my past and I'm like, no, I know what it feels like to have those grossly uninformed opinions. I'm very familiar.
No, I just feel that way because it's like I feel I kind of know it, because going there I was watching Computing Forever until he was at like red pill stage, and after the red pill stage that's when I went over and like saw how extreme he had gone.
Fair. Yeah, it's awkward, but that said, I have enjoyed this conversation, and I am going to grab our last person in.
Yeah, man, go for it.
Will do. All right. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 people there. We are going to roll a randomizer. We're also going to purchase Garen, and I want to purchase Fiora, but I can't. Okay, we'll do that.
Precision and grace.
There we go. Randomizer 1 through 8. 1 through 8 number generator. 1 through 8 and go. 8. Okay, cool. And it's you. How's it going?
Is this supposed to be a challenge?
Or not? I guess I pulled the wrong person. Also, it seems that all of my stuff is freezing, which is not the greatest.
Come on. Oh god. Where did Suris go?
Hello.
No!
Thank God.
Suris,
Hello, Suris.
Oh, my heart.
Suris
So we
is gone.
literally the entire time,
Suris is
we've been
here.
having discussions.
Hi, Suris.
Oh dear.
We've just been having discussions in this entire chat whilst people have been waiting to be picked to go in. So we've had discussions about like healthcare. We've had discussions about just
Suris,
general
I was here
stuff.
at like the very beginning and didn't get picked. Then I had to go eat dinner, and now I'm.
I kind of
I've kind of been watching your videos for a while.
Who has small children in the background?
Rampant.
Because of
That
the
is-
screen.
Suris, I cannot hear you at all.
So you should be able to hear me.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Hi there.
This is quite loud. You know what? I'm just going to spend the last 5 minutes in here with everybody for anybody who wasn't able to get picked. Since
I
So-
didn't get picked.
Well,
I thought my username would be
You
interesting.
have a resident pagan now.
Oh, woo! You mean outside of Ocean?
Oh, I didn't know who.
Well,
this is like the first I've heard of Ocean. I haven't been in your community very long, so
Fair.
Yeah,
So the co-host of my podcast that I normally run on Thursdays, his name is Ocean Keltoy, and he actually is a pagan. He's and one of our moderators, Aaliyah Kai, is also a pagan. She is a reconstructionist Hellenist.
Oh, what?
Oh, nice. I have no idea what that means.
She worships Greek gods.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
a little bit different. More, I'm the freelance kind that'll just bounce around and be like, "Oh, hey."
I mean, I mentioned what I was in the stream, whilst I was there. And like I said, Suris, we've just been talking about random stuff, and then suddenly you just pull someone away that time.
Yeah.
A mini heart attack.
And we're just like, we notice as soon as somebody, like, you let that person back, someone back in, we're like, oh, wait, better all stay quiet. Suris is about to bring someone in.
Yeah. I was about to make a point in the conversation we were having when he told me.
I'm also hearing music from someone.
That's who wants to eat a
who
napkin.
wants to eat a
He's got instruments and stuff.
Okay.
He's the music man.
Yes, we call him the music man now.
The music man.
Good ambient conversation music.
Just be careful. Just be careful who wants to eat pumpkin. Suris doesn't want to get demonetized.
Oh God.
True. I actually have had a.
Everybody, shout the F word as loud as you can.
Okay, like this. I can't do that because then I get thrown out of my university.
I would get a whole bottle of soap shoved down
Sorry
my
to hear
gullet
that,
if I could.
Chaos.
Okay,
Yeah.
I need to literally turn my volume down way because I can hear myself. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Wait, Suris, if I play copyrighted music, am I going to get you demonetized?
Actually, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
happening.
aren't most of your videos normally like demonetized anyway, and then after a while they get monetized again?
So
because that's how it's been for a lot of creators I've seen.
Sometimes they do, but here's the thing: even though a majority of my videos do get demonetized, it's just a matter of YouTube being YouTube. It doesn't mean that I also would like more of my videos demonetized.
See, a lot of the
Fair, 5 years old and gets demonetized, but present day, yeah, you're gonna be a little miffed.
See, one thing about the YouTube copyright system is it's sort of broken. When somebody claims you, right, even if it's automated or manual, right, they have improved the system a bit now, but it's still broken. Because somebody can claim you. Yeah, and not just that as well. There's other things that have happened to other YouTubers. Like, I don't know if you've heard about it, but there's this YouTuber called JT who was exposing a YouTuber for like basically copying PewDiePie as thumbnails, etc.
Yeah.
And they got false copyrighted twice. YouTube did nothing about it because he claimed against it, saying it's fair use, and he had 2 strikes on his channel. Appealed it to YouTube themselves, and they sorted it out for him. Because it was another thing that's been shown now is PewDiePie's translators have actually been exposed as self-promoting. You know, a lot of things are happening on YouTube that shouldn't be happening at all.
YouTube's just going
That's
down,
what happens
like
when you let the
downhill. I
robots
can't
run
wait
the
till it
asylum.
just dies.
One thing
Like, it's gonna
that
suck when it dies,
the reason for YouTube getting so incredibly strict about the profanity and other random filters on it is because they are kind of illegally trying to appeal to kids under 13.
Yeah.
They have YouTube Kids.
Yeah, they have YouTube.
Yeah,
Kids, though.
that's
No,
the thing.
like-
It's like there's normal YouTube.
There.
There's normal YouTube, and then there's YouTube, and then there's YouTube Kids.
No, like on main YouTube, they're also trying to do it there too. Like YouTube right
Yeah,
now.
which means like a lot of the people I know, like it happened to Armored Skeptic's recent video on video games. You know, the whole video games causing violence thing that's been going around.
Done to death.
I hate
Yeah,
the fact
Suris,
that
what are your
fucking. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
As
I'm so used to it. I probably just got you demonetized, Suris.
as someone who is more right wing than most people I meet on
Even
Suris's channel, I
censoring,
apologize.
cursing
I
is getting people,
apologize.
like,
I apologize for the
problems.
stupidity of people saying that that video games cause violence because it's just the dumbest thing ever.
It is.
Okay, I can tell you a story about that. That actually happened
They
in.
have much
that's-
lower violence
Okay,
rates.
may I just quickly say this voice chat at the moment is basically like brutal at the moment, if you know what I mean, because there's so many of us talking at once.
Yeah, that hurts.
Yeah,
I mean, the format before worked for like on the stream, but I guess since it's the last bit of time that he's got for the stream, he's doing it like this so that people could actually talk.
Yeah,
which is a little difficult to get people in edgewise that way.
Yeah, I actually
mean,
have a
Cyrus,
problem
imagine if
hearing
you did
everyone.
this. If you did this the entire time, you would get too many people in trying to talk at once. You would have to basically server mute people to actually be able to hear people.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
it's good that it's good
Oh,
to use the
Suris,
format
you
you
died
use.
again. I
You know,
hate that.
you should actually do some of these a bit more often. You might get some more people coming in.
So I will do these every now and again when I need essentially filler content. So if I don't have something planned that day, but I know a video does need to come out, this would be an opportunity to kind of sit on ground floor and have a conversation with everybody. But speaking of that, since I did just die, I do think that's a good time for me to end my stream proper itself.
Right. But, yeah,
Hope I get to talk to you next time.
Yeah, I hope I get to talk to you again, dude.
Yeah, it was
I
fun
at least-
talking.
I at least
Hope I
wanna
get to
say,
talk to you.
Suris, you did help me. Now I get to actually think about things. So thank you for that. You've been extremely helpful.
Oh, and Cyrus, could you possibly, if possible, send me a direct message with the software again, or a link to it? Because I've forgotten the name of it already. I have a bad memory. I'm sorry about that.
I can give it to you.
Everybody
Thank you.
has a bad memory sometimes.
Yeah, let's just hope YouTube finally loosens up things for future streams, so that way they have strict censors than regular TV.
Yeah, you do not want to watch Swedish
American.
television. Mainstream Swedish news are so.
All right. Well, on that, I have hopped out of there because I didn't know how long that conversation was going to go, which is unfortunate because I would like to continue that conversation, but I do have to get food for the household. But I have enjoyed being on here with everybody, and it has been fun. So hopefully you all enjoyed as well. It's been a fairly uneventful Thursday outside of the one troll we had in chat. So if you guys enjoyed, let me know, leave a comment, all that other fun stuff. Otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow.